Is this guy like just the biggest brain play you've ever seen? Like milliseconds of things are happening
Or
that
is he
I
the
could look
complete
at for a
opposite?
few minutes and watch it and break it down? Or is he just dashing into a smoke and just killing everyone? It just happens to be that he manages to do it correctly every time.
Yeah.
And
Skillful
what's the
genius?
verdict?
There were definitely some questions.
That was a hard cast.
Well,
Let's put it that way.
It was like fucking DJing a funeral.
You said that multiple times
I
on
did.
the cast.
It was a genuine feeling. I've never felt so much like there's a casket right in front of me, and I'm going, "Let's go!" Like it's just it's up. Like it's
Quite convincingly, quite easily against Fnatic. Now that you're starting to see EU, everybody's on the hopium because Fnatic's out. So like, oh, that means everybody got so much better in Europe. But then no, you're still gonna get by Sentinels, no matter who you are.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Valoranting, your Valorant podcast for the week of August the 15th. Vance has just gotten off a plane. That's why he's still wearing his mask. You know, you can take it off now,
yeah,
bro,
totally
right?
forgot about it. Dude, I just...
This guy trying to pretend he doesn't live on his own. You are, mate, you literally have a room dedicated to your fucking squat rack. You don't need to wear a mask in there, big guy.
That's true. Well,
How
listen,
you doing? Welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, man. I'm doing great. I literally just flew in. It was, oh, man, it's hard traveling into Canada these days because this whole, like, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to do to prepare to cross the border. If not, they can't even let you on the plane. But as I'm talking to you guys, I'm looking outside the screen. Look what Razer just sent me. Now I could Viper cosplay because they actually sent me that mask. The fucking...
There it is.
The fucking...
Dude, I was just talking about that beforehand, yeah. So a few content creators, probably the Bad Moon talent team, I think primarily are getting sent out these masks right now. And I don't know if there's an embargo, Van, so I'm not sure. I have to recheck the email. But yeah, mate, while we're doing the show, see if you can fucking get it turned on because it does some insane shit. Before we jump in there, yeah. Before we jump in there, Mitch, good to have you back on the show, mate. Wow, what a week it's been for EMEA. You guys aren't even done. You still got a part 2 Electric Boogaloo of the Challengers finals, man.
yeah, this is our day off. You know, no games today, and then we kick back off tomorrow and culminate it. It's gonna be pretty fun, and I'm feeling a little bit jealous right now. I gotta be honest. You know, that looks like a sick mask. You're talking about Viper cosplays. I mean, let's go ahead and bring my own. You know what's up? I discovered Etsy about 2 weeks ago, and it has been a fucking tragedy.
Yeah,
for
dude.
my wallet. Holy shit!
You would not believe how much man jewelry I buy from Etsy, bro. It's out of control. I bought a fucking opal ring off there, man. I don't fuck about. Oh yeah, it's great. I love that site.
How you
anyway,
been, Mitch? I get to ask you.
Yeah. What do? I worked last week. You know, I was doing a fucking Overwatch League. You know, trying to keep an eye on all this shit going on. But there's too much Valorant. It is just absolutely insane. And you know what? Like, as a result of that, like I just was completely blindsided by Turkey in EMEA, just how good they looked. So
yeah.
I mean, there's probably a lot of fans that are in the same boat here as well, especially those that like are strictly EU and NA fans, because they just don't have the bandwidth to watch other stuff. And I've been grinding Final Fantasy 14. That's my life.
Hell yeah.
Anyway, let's talk about what's on the show today. First and foremost, we love just our scams. So, couple of interesting scenarios that went down over the course of the week here, and we're going to try and delve into it and understand it a little bit. Just what we do over here on Valoranting. Following that, we're going to jump in to VCT EMEA. We've got Tombizz coming on the show here to help us break down everything that's happened because we've had some really significant upsets. Some teams as well, 2 of them have already been decided are heading to Berlin pending seeding. So that's something we're going to try and break down at length. Very, very interesting developments over at EMEA. And then, of course, we cross over to North America, where El Diablo is on the rise, and we have our 3 teams, our 3 delegates, who are going over towards Berlin. We'll talk about some of those games there, the highs, the lows, and everything in between. But first of all, Vance, you missed the rehearsal, so you get to react to this in real time now, which is great.
Nice.
Let's talk about some schemazing that we saw going on this week. So, righto. This is the typical 18-year-old Valorant player with an anime profile picture. The diamond doesn't, but it's the situation that's a little bit more, I don't know, interesting.
So you get better.
Basically, yeah, I mean, so MGA Valorant, MGA is like, I don't know what it stands for. I don't know. MSI is, like the computer hardware company, and they run esports stuff. You know what I mean? Same as like ROG and stuff like that. So I did an MSI MGA tournament. I'll tell you guys about that later because it's very significant. This guy's saying he has been paid for it. And presumably this is the tournament organizer, or at least the admin.
Yeah.
And he's like, one of your players wasn't in the US, and you can only you have to have US players, so you're not getting paid. But this non-US citizen didn't play any games, but he's still not getting paid. This guy's like, nah, should have all been US on the roster. So this motherfucker is literally not paying them. Now, this guy I think is employed by MJ. He doesn't represent that company. I'm pretty sure he's just a tournament organizer. What the fuck is this?
Yeah. So is he like just putting a hard stop to like, I'm not paying you because of the whole PAX thing that happened with Decop pretty much? He's like, I don't want to deal with this.
There's no way. It needs to be avoided in the future. What? What needs to be avoided? What the fuck's wrong with you?
But they didn't even play with him, so what's the issue?
Surely they shouldn't be allowed to register in the first place if there's a player not eligible to play. Like, that seems like it's more of a thing on the TO side. Like, oh, we're going to stop anyone else from registering in the future by just not paying you is a pretty fucking stupid way to run that. I love that his name is Crime on Discord. That is just fucking perfect. But yeah, that makes absolutely no sense, especially if the dude didn't play. They should definitely be getting their money.
But
I mean,
you said this was MSI, right, as well, Mitch?
well, this is MSI. They're running like a tournament series called MGA Valorant.
But
And
MSI
I
is
think they're like,
good though, usually with this kind of stuff too.
okay, motherfuckers, it's fucking story time. Okay, so a few years ago now, I was invited out to do an Overwatch event in London, which is great because I hadn't really been to the UK. I think outside of doing an Insomnia Land. It was going to be me, Hexagrams, Bren Sideshow. Oh wait, was it Sideshow? Bren sold his Xbox to get there. I don't know. Whatever. It doesn't matter. We were at this event and it was MSI MGA Overwatch tournament. So it was partnered with Gfinity. Gfinity, great mob, really, really good at putting events together. Great tournament organizers. MSI, obviously, the people running it, they wanted to put on an Overwatch tournament. They got the best teams from NA and from EU at this event. So you have like, I think it was like Riot Nation had an Overwatch team back then, and like Ninjas in Pajamas were there. So like of that era, it's before the Overwatch League. What they don't tell anybody is that MSI were expecting we're all set up inside the Gfinity, the cinema thing there, like, like what Gfinity have over there at Stamford Bridge. What MSI didn't tell anyone is that the players were expected to play on their laptops that they were trying to market. Now, you could plug a monitor into it and fine, that was all well and good, but they wanted the players to play on these laptops. Now, this is like supposed to be a 3-day tournament. I think it's got like 6 teams. It's decently big or whatever. But the players try and play Overwatch on these laptops, like 80 frames max, 80 FPS on these fucking laptops. Just absolutely, and MSI was like, well, I mean, what's the issue here? Like you guys got to, we were at a tournament. We were invited you out here. You're in a hotel. Like, you're here to play. The players are like, we're not fucking playing on these laptops. Gfinity have PCs right there. They have their own PCs. Let's use those. MSI like, no. So they get the upgraded model of their laptops to have the players play on. 110 FPS. 110 FPS.
Yes.
Players like, this is fucking bullshit. and then the internet cut out and like all these problems happen over and over again. I literally went to do an event. I traveled from where was I at the time? I was in Cologne, actually. I traveled to London for 3 days for an event that never happened. We sat in Wetherspoons for 3 days waiting for MSI to get their shit together. It is one of the most ridiculous disasters of an event that I have ever done. So, in fairness, while this situation in terms of Valorant might not be directly MSI's problem, they've got some absolute fuck knuckle of a tournament organizer, an individual, just a person that is an admin here to do it. I found their Twitter. It's at Black Claws HS. 111 follower Andy. Someone that just apparently runs tournaments. They run them on like the Battlefy platform, but it's a person that's doing it. So this jumped up motherfucker is withholding $400 from this team because they had a non-American player on their roster, even though they didn't play with them. You can't make this shit up.
Seems like he's kind of like a shark, right? Like you monitor the rules closely, see if there's any teams in breach, and if they win prize money, that's your pocket money. He's probably still invoicing MSI for the 400 quid. As far as they're concerned, they've probably paid their prize pool.
Yeah, motherfucker's pocketing it.
It's got a new fucking watch walking around now. Like, what the fuck is this about?
Because I was going to say, MSI is good at paying people at least, because I did stuff with the MSI summertime last year with Valorant, and tournament was done, casters were paid, good rate. That was actually my good experience with them.
But then when you're talking about lands and stuff, it kind of makes me think like Jason and Scott are in here. What was that land that was like a father and son that landed some shit in Vegas? Wasn't it with MSI as a sponsor as well? It was supposed to have like Call of Duty and Counter-Strike, and nothing was running around. Nothing was happening. CXG? And then even their laptops got stolen. EXG, is it? What was it called? Yeah, CXG, the Hill family. That's it. Oh man, that was a disaster. I'm glad I didn't go to that one. That was like 2004, 2005. Crazy.
Right. I'm not shitting on MSI. I mean, I've done an MGA MSI event and it never happened. It's like a huge meme in the Overwatch community. Yeah. It's just I went to London for 3 days, got paid for it, you better believe, and fucked about. Anyway, so Shopify Rebels CEO Steve J comes in and they righted the bad, capital B bad, TOs wrong, and paid them what they were owed by MSI. Okay, good on you, Steves. You had an extra 400 quid hanging around. Do appreciate that. I think, you know, it's nice to see that there are people there that are looking to sort of, fix this stuff. It doesn't really answer the problem. It gets the players pay, which is great, but
yeah,
like this guy, this Black Claws motherfucker needs to not be retained by MSI to admin their events. Like, I mean, don't worry, the guy's catching heat on Twitter. There's no doubt about that. So, they're the kind of person that seems like, they love the fact that they get to be in charge as an admin. Yeah, it's actually the worst type of personality to be an admin, unfortunately. So
yeah.
Probably avoid that individual. The fact that he's called Crime Mitch, like you said, is pretty incredible. So there you have it. Just keep away from that guy. Don't fucking deal with him. MSI, sure, they're a fine company. Just as long as they don't make you play on their fucking laptops, you're Gucci. Let's move on. Another spam. We got Snow. Another scam. Excuse me. We got more scams, Van. Do you like this? All right. So
I mean, what? Arthur still didn't pay?
We actually no, we didn't cover that yet. Yeah. We wanted to make sure you were here to defend him like you always do. But, here's a guy called Piotr Val. Calling out someone called Scarlet. Biggest piece of trash shit. Never trust this guy. Me and the rest of the guys from Don't Fake It. Yep, definitely. Yep, I've seen that team. Are probably going to write down some sort of article. Maybe just tell the story to someone who can write an article. But TLDR, he made a few fake accounts, impersonated Go Crazy managers, and offered €100 salary just to I'm on the
€1,000.
Just to play with us. Just to play. Yeah, sorry. So
numbers are
I guess they were trying to buy their way into a team. So it was like, you're going to get paid a salary of €1,000, but I have to play with you, basically.
What?
Isn't this the whole fucking Faze Clan Academy all over again, but in Europe?
Yeah, I guess. I mean,
it sounds exactly like the same storyline. It's like, hey, I have potential of being able to join an organization, but I have to play with you guys because I need to roster ride, so I build my XP so that eventually maybe I could scam some other people into a roster and get free salary and fucking ride with it.
It's the Michael approach. God, I haven't heard that name in ages. Yeah, kinda. So, yeah. So Go Crazy is a German esports org based in Berlin. It's not like huge. It's definitely more of like a domestic level sort of organizer. But yeah, basically this bloke has just tried to impersonate them and offered a salary that didn't exist. I assume the salary didn't exist, right?
Yeah, it has to not.
That plan doesn't have legs, right? At some point, but at some point, people are going to realize they're not getting paid the fucking €1,000 salary. Like,
I mean, maybe
how does this still happen?
Maybe he's like, maybe he's a little rich kid, like oil tycoon dad or something, and he's thinking, hey, if I pay these guys a couple grand, they'll pick me up as a teammate. They'll think we're on crazy. It's going to be great.
So okay, it's a Discord account. Here's the person. Don't fucking brigade them. They're obviously just a little bit of a sad individual, but. I mean, yeah, here I thought that the situation that we talked about with the Faze Academy stuff would just be sort of a one-off and just one. I mean, it was not quite as bad. The web doesn't run quite as deep here. That's because this guy's plan was far less sophisticated, in fairness. But another example of, people in Valorant wanting to try and, get paid to play the game, which I get, and kind of getting sucked in. Hopefully they didn't lose too much as a result of it outside of their precious time, which when you're young and you're trying to find your way in the world is definitely, it's worth a bit. You want to know another scam? I got scammed. I don't know about you guys, but I got scammed personally. I got scammed out of DDK's casting at Berlin. I'm not going to get to hear the dulcet tones of Dan Capadio.
Oh, what happened?
He just tweets, to dispel any assumptions when talent is announced, I did not get invited to cast at Berlin. I'm excited to follow from the sidelines to see whether anyone can beat Sentinels this time. I'll be cooking up a lot of volley content in the meantime. Hopefully that means the return of Immortal Minds. But this is pretty sad. Okay, so this is his fiance. This is Bree. People are reaching out to Bree to ask about this. Bree is also a producer, sort of here in in California. So she probably understands the dynamic of the situation a fair bit, and obviously trying to direct people to sort of get excited about the event and stuff like that. I think neither Dan nor her really want any situation which like anyone is getting dragged down as a result of this, because I don't know if you guys saw Pansy's tweet recently, but there's obviously quite a trend of people that can't hold their favorite talent up without sort of dragging others down, and
it's just a regular conversation all the time, and it gets fucking annoying. Like why would you want to pit us against our peers all the time? Community, I mean, it's like, I think what a lot of people fail to understand is that like a lot of the time, sure, like if on the outside it might look like we're competing with our peers, but we're really just trying to compete with ourselves, because we know that if we try and copy our peers, we just won't get any better and won't get anywhere. So we're just scamming ourselves. I don't know. Maybe I think it's easy to understand once you're a caster and you realize like, I'm actually not, like, the only way I quote unquote beat other people is by beating myself. So weird situation. But yeah, look, bit of a shame to not have Dan there. I think this is definitely a personal opinion. I think it's quite subjective when people talk about casting. I would say that if for someone who knows how casting works and what good casting is, then maybe it's less subjective. But I'll still admit that it's my opinion. Thought Dan was probably one of the best casters in NA, definitely play-by-play. He leaned heavily analytical, which meant that him and Sean really gave you a good deep dive into the tactics, and it wasn't over the top. He didn't waffle. Oh, he doesn't. I feel like I'm fucking eulogizing for the poor bastard. But, you know what I mean? Like there was no bullshit. Dan has a genuine passion for the intricacies of a tactical shooter, so he offered a lot, I think, as a caster in those matches where he and Sean were actually able to, to joust at the same level when they sort of traded anecdotes and discussed some of the higher level parts of the game. So it's a shame. I think he'd actually make a great analyst as well. What's kind of crazy is that he's probably one of the best analysts in Valorant as well. So he's definitely versatile.
Odd decision for sure. We don't know anything else about the other talent going or not going, but I'm telling everybody right now, this is not the only notable omission from the Berlin talent list, from what I know. So I would say just maybe curb your expectations a little bit if you have like a certain caster that you really want to be there. I think that I'm sure the product's going to be great, but something tells me they're running a little lean on talent for Berlin, and there might be reasons for that, right? It could be travel restrictions and such.
COVID times, everything. Like I'm always down for like giving like opportunities for others. So like the talent pool is fucking huge that we currently have for Valorant right now, right? Like aside, like take away like all the COVID casters that appeared in the last year and a half, the ones that are seasoned that are still trying to make a switch or have been grinding like the tier 2 scene for the longest time, let's say in Overwatch, in Counter-Strike, in Apex Legends, and now you have a high tier caliber title that comes out with Valorant, and it gives you an opportunity to be like, okay, another clean slate, and then somehow you make it. Well, not somehow. I mean, you deserve to make it for sure. But like the amount of experience they put into the tier 2 scene, what you want to do originally is not going to be your game because you have other people that you have to compete in, such as, for example, yourself, Uber. But then after that, Valorant comes out, you have a chance to be at the same level as everybody else when you're trying to start and get in, and then you race. Some of them make it faster than you, some of them beat you, you beat others. I respect that. I respect that. But the question also did come out from Scott though, is like, if we're talent and we find out that we aren't going, would we tweet out the same way as Dan would before the talenters would come out? I don't know if I would on my end.
Good question. I think that Dan's not dumb. And I think that like, especially casters with larger followings, I think they probably have a reason for tweeting this stuff out. And I would suspect, and I don't know this for sure, I would suspect Dan is he's probably as confused as a lot of folk out there as to why this is happening. I can say with a degree of confidence that it's look, and like no caster, and I'm gonna say this, no caster is warranted You're not obligated to telecast of why you're not hiring them. It will be nice to do that. It will be helping them out. You know, it'll be a sign of good faith to sort of explain them. But from what I can tell in Valorant, with talent selection, has been a little sporadic, and the reasonings often just haven't really been there. It's been, you know, hard for casters to find out why they're not doing stuff. Again, doesn't have to happen. Very helpful though, especially if you're trying to sort of curate a young talent pool, talent scene. So I think that, you know, Dan might be trying to start a conversation.
Yep.
You know what I mean? About it. He might just be trying to, and again, most casters know that they're, to a degree, they can leverage the community to pressure a tournament organizer. Dan might not be trying to pressure them into putting him on the event, but he might be trying to go, hey, like, this is, you know, people are noticing this, and I would at least like to understand why this is happening. So there's a ton of reasons for it. Frankly, if a tournament organizer does not interact with me in good faith when either accepting, you know, me for a talent or declining me, I will not feel obligated to act in good faith either. But I have a little bit of leverage, a little bit more, I don't know, of a buffer. I have look at me, fucking hell, I'm cussing people out all the time in this show. Like, I have, you know, whether that's justified or not as well, but I felt like I can do that. So, you know, if I have a tournament organizer that fucks me around, then yeah, they'll know about it. You know, like, it's just, you have to respect the talent you're working with, otherwise they'll turn around and make you look pretty bad.
Yeah.
So the fine line, I would not tweet about it unless there was a reason for it, because what I don't want to avoid, I don't know what you think about this, Mitch, but what I want to avoid doing is stoking a sentiment in the community where they just flame the people that did make it, right? And then just kind of fucking ruin it for them. Like, I would not want to weaponize the community to shit on the people that got there instead of me, when it was not their fault, really. Like, they got chosen. So it's actually not that cut and dry.
My initial thought was the same, like with the whole sending hatred out and all that sort of stuff. I actually think Dan's done a good job of avoiding that, more so than he would have if he said nothing until the announcement came out. A lot of people are going to assume, I assumed that he would be on the event. I don't have a lot of contact with the NA guys. Oh, someone's at the door. Hold on.
Pizza,
Hey,
McDonald's.
Your front door. Me 2 seconds. Oh no, we made dinner at home today, man. So gonna lose a little bit of weight. All right, so we gotta leave those away. But here's the thing, you know, like, I look at the tweet that went out. People are gonna have the expectation that he will be on the broadcast, and I think if the first time that they found out, especially NA fans, found out that he wasn't on the roster for the event, was on the announcement, then it would immediately turn to pick somebody there and go, why the fuck is this person here and not Dan? Whereas now they already have that expectation coming in. That said, probably still going to happen. But I also think that just getting it out there, he's probably in a state of shock. I was when I read that tweet. Again, I was 100% certain that Dan was going to be going. So it sucks. It really does, because I fucking love his casting.
Yeah, I think it's more not only on let's say Riot with talent announcements, but I think it's just like TOs, publishers with talent in general. I think if there was some sort of like open communication to be like, hey, I understand that you've been working in the scene for a long time, trying to do this, trying to do that, but we didn't take you because XYZ. I think as talent, it would be great for me to be able to get that feedback so that I know where I could improve for next time. But I also do think that this is another great way to be like, set the expectation, as Mitch was saying, so that we don't have those type of Reddit threads that has like a DDK versus Pansy versus myself versus Mitchman, and et cetera, et cetera. I think we could definitely do a better job to open those communications between the TOs and talent so that it doesn't come as a surprise. And not only that, but I feel that, you know, Mitch, if it wasn't for Overwatch League and you're still freelancing, the amount of times that you get last-minute bookings as well is like, hey, we have an event coming up next month, but you're only going to find out in like 2 weeks before or a week before if you're going to get the gig or not. That's another bigger issue too. So what is the baseline? What is the criteria that you need to actually reach in order to be like, okay, I could maybe guarantee some sort of like safety in my job as well? Because now that there's no criteria or like an entry level to be accepted into like a tier 2, tier 1 casting scene, then we're just like we're just walking into the unknown and just hopefully that we see the light in the end, you know?
I mean, there's a reason why I chose not to try freelancing and go Valorant this year.
Yeah.
I think that like it's really volatile at the moment. And look, it's just tough because there are like 60% of Valorant casters that are just not gonna make it to the point that they want to, and that's already been predetermined in some way or another. So I agree. That's a great point. I think sometimes the intent behind a caster making these announcements doesn't always match up with the impact either, but I think setting expectations is really important. Setting expectations for the fans, because it cushions against seeing a Twitch chat spam that people find out day of, or just you just want to remove as much hassle from the talent that are actually doing the event during the event itself, right? They don't have to fucking worry about this shit, because like frankly, like there are plenty of casters that just don't give a shit, and there are some that do. You know what I mean? And if there are those that do sort of care about this, then you're doing them a favor by sort of maybe mitigating any potential blowback that you might sort of suffer. In the lead up. So I think that's fine. I think that Dan should be there. Can we show that George Getty's tweet again? Do we have that? Seems like Sean and Riv will be the only two commentators from NA going to VCT Berlin. Did I miss anybody? Shit swag. So
is that confirmed? First of all, did we?
It's not. Okay. It's not confirmed, but
only
it lines
reported
up.
for now, yeah.
It lines up with what I know, which I'm not a juice dealer, but I talk to other casters, because why would I preach about talking to other casters and then not do it? So, look, and it could be because obviously it's in Berlin. Like there's some travel issues as well associated with getting NA people over there. There'll be some people, even I think from what I understand, there'll be some people who are from Europe that will be not in studio, and who will be casting remotely but in Europe. So that maybe begs the question, why not use NA people for that? But that's by the by. And then there'll be some that should be in the studio. So we'll see.
Sorry, I was sidetracked. I love the comment from Daniel going, "You talk to other casters? You watch VODs?" No, and honestly, like I mean, right now, I guess if it's reported here from George that it's only Sean and Riv, I guess the question is, I'm on the show. People are probably gonna wonder if I'm going or not. So I'll be honest and say, look, I'm just on the backup list for now in case something happens. I wasn't given any specific reasons why I was not going or why I would be chosen to go. And it's nothing bad. I think, at least for me, as you guys know, I'm always looking at like the brighter side of everything. And I've told many times to aspiring casters too, is like, you could grind the fuck out of your craft for 14 hours a day, or throughout the whole year for Valorant. You may still not get the event. You may not still be on the tier 1 list for like the bigger events, right? I've been doing this for 20 years, and there's still events that I can't really get. Right now, for me, honestly, for freelancing, it's like the nature of the business, and you kind of just gotta go with it for now, and just stay humble, keep working hard, and eventually it'll come.
Yeah, I think I would echo that, especially for casters that are also maybe feeling like they missed out. From what I know about the list, there's a ton of inclusions that I agree with. It's more so the exclusions that I don't agree with, right? But there's not enough room for anyone. There are a couple inclusions that I disagree with, but that's fine. That's what it means to have a brain and be able to think for yourself sometimes. Let's move on though. I think we've harped on this for a little bit. We're talking about, exclusions. Here's a potential inclusion. Cheeky little Stewie 2K had a moment on his stream where he may have highlighted some of his future prospects. It could just be fluff, but we're putting it in the fucking top of the show, in the A block as we call it, because that's where all the speculative shit happens. So roll the tape, roll it, roll the clip.
All right, we're gonna start that. I don't know if you heard, Sabrosa, but if you're doing the watch party tomorrow, I'm down to watch with you guys. I actually learned a lot from watching. With all jokes aside, I'm not making the switch, but I will eventually. I was saying that I didn't know who Astra was. I thought it was like Phoenix's sister. I thought that Astra was the character that Steel was playing, the robot-looking dude. My chat's always trying to start Valorant and CS:GO beef. Dude, I'm gonna make the swap. I swear to God. Another person who tells me to swap, I swap right now.
Oh, yo, you got it working?
I got it
does it have a
working.
microphone in there?
No, but there's fans. It's fucking cooling my fucking cheeks. I'm fucking loving this.
What?
Van Silly finally got some fans. Unreal.
To keep me cool for sure.
It does muffle a little bit, but okay. So look, I can kind of
bad.
jive with if it actually fucking works.
Yeah.
Yo, what? Yeah, if there's some,
Got
I
these
need to know
filters,
what.
too.
Yeah, there you go. See, if it's got like a proper rated filters that you can replace, then it's fine. Can you put it on your fucking head? Actually, strap it on.
If you have
Go on.
oily cheeks, though, it leaves like a little bit of oil marks here on
Oh,
the side.
dude,
so-
I'm a fucking grease ball.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm half
definitely a grease ball.
Hungarian. You know, I'm greasing it up.
This could be awkward on me trying to wear this. Hold on.
Okay, I kind of just want to. I mean, the LEDs are a little much.
Feels like I'm trying to wear a thong.
Where I'm from,
I don't want to know how you know what that feels like.
Did we get a knock on the door?
Actually, it's pretty good.
yet? FedEx. Okay.
The mask or a thong?
I mean, whatever floats your boat, you know. On Thursdays.
I might travel with that. I think people would look at me funny.
Yeah.
But I think it probably offers more protection than like an N95. I don't
Is
know
it
about the
comfortable?
It's comfortable. It's not heavy. It lights up automatically, I guess, in the dark or some shit. Alexa, turn off desk spotlight.
Yeah, I think mine's come as well.
Nice,
See if we can
there it
all.
is, there it is.
Anyway, so all right, what I wish it could have, you know, like the anime face that looks like the little cat face. It's like it's like 2C. I don't know how to explain it. Anyway, I wish I could have like little anime expressions on it. Anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about VCT EMEA while I crack this open and join you guys in Mask Heaven. We're bringing on to the show Mitch Man's better half, we'll be looking to. Yeah, we'll be looking to delve deep into his brain and see how the two of you go back and forth. Welcome to the show, one and only Tombizz.
Thank you. Yeah, slightly better half, slightly taller as well, although Mitch will argue that all day long. You know.
Absolutely false, but okay.
Shave
will-
the head and we'll measure it properly and we'll see.
At
Slightly
some point in
brighter.
the future, I imagine we'll work a LAN event together, Tom, and at that point, all your lives are going to come fucking crumbling down.
I'm gonna wear high heels. That's what I'm
slightly
gonna
brighter
walk
too,
in
but
with
that's
the
just 'cause
biggest
of his
boots you've
forehead.
ever seen.
Get you some platform pumps. Hey Tom, thanks for joining us on the show, man. Obviously, things are been pretty insane out in Europe so far. It's turned out that's been quite a spicy region. Can we just have a look at the bracket? Let's throw the bracket up here, and I just want you to give me like a sweeping statement about, you know, whether this is what we expected, this is, you know, crazy, this is shit. Like, what are your thoughts?
FPX are out. This is already not what we expected. Like, my pick'ems were going beautifully. Like, I got the Navi Team Liquid match right. I was like, oh, it's all going to plan. Then I see FPX almost lose to FF, 10-2 down on a map, and I'm thinking, ah, shit, this is going as badly as could be. And then they get eliminated by Forze, which, like, if anybody predicted that, they're mentally ill. I don't know
Someone
anyone who's put that in their pick'em.
Someone did.
They're in that top 0.1% and they should be locked up.
Didn't you see the tweet? I think it was VLR put out where one user had 100% accuracy after. I think it was after the second day. I'm not 100% sure.
100%
but
accuracy?
they've definitely fucked it at this point.
Well, it says they're in the top 0% and there's 2 users. So I assume
There's
it's
two
those
users
2.
now.
That's
More
okay.
people have been added.
So, why do you think? All right, before we jump into the games, we're gonna like look at them sort of one by one. Why do you think that maybe FPX have this unreal capitulation? Like, what is it that, you know? Are we blindsided by the fact that they may be weaker right now, or are we underestimating their opponents? What is this made of? This situation?
For me, I think they just overthink things. Like, genuinely, I think they're trying to outbrain, like, teams that they don't need to outbrain. Like, realistically, I think Forze were actually a lot better than I thought they would be. I think Zeddy is someone who is one for the future. His Astra play was sick. But, like, I'm seeing Shao. Like, I don't know if everybody here knows the history of someone like Shao being on Party Pirates originally, and then you had Zipan as well back on Fabrican, then forming to create the super team. They were 2 of the best duelists in the entirety of Europe. The man was playing Viper. Like, what? Why is the man playing Viper? It doesn't make any sense. Like, he was playing Omen on another map, which I will say he top fragged the map, which I guess you can still look at it and go, that was the longest map ever in VCT, by the way, and he was still at the top of the board, and they lost, and he was playing Omen. But it's just like, you're then putting people like Demasik on duelists when you have 2 of the previously best young duelists in the entirety of Europe. I just think that they're going into this like, oh yeah, we'll play zero duelists versus Forze, when in reality, I think if you just use the individual players you had, you would have won that match anyway. Now, you go against, say, a Fnatic or, I don't know, an Acend. Yeah, you have to think a little bit deeper about those games. But when you're up against a Forze or a Fireflux, you should be able to beat them without all of the like zero duelist tactics and just boom them like we've seen Liquid do in some of their later matches.
Speaking of which, glad you bring that up, because right at the top of the bracket, we know that Navi are like an underdog team, that there's a lot of potential there, potential dark horses, right? Only getting recently announced, but I think a lot of people are really excited about the prospects of this roster. They go up against Team Liquid here. Talk us through this series, because very competitive, really close. I know a lot of people were excited to see Arch in form, but this one probably doesn't go the way that many people expect in the end.
Oh, well, if I show you my pick'em, Zuba, I actually did predict Navi to win. So you can. Okay. No, I think, to be honest, it was two things. One, I think that Navi have been criminally underrated because they keep losing to Gambit, and I don't think that's a fair representation of them as a team. Like, they were brand new, coming in as no pressure. Only one of their players was signed to Navi, which was kind of a weird dynamic, and then the rest of them weren't at the initial stages. And then they did well all the way through until they played Gambit. And even if you watch back some of the matches there, they were just losing really dumb rounds. Like, it was like, oh, we're in a 5 versus 3, let's swing on them. Like, it was just really silly situations. So I was like, okay, going into this game, there's potential for this team. And Team Liquid always seem in like the upper bracket. It's like there's two different versions of Team Liquid. Team Liquid that will be eliminated if they lose, and Team Liquid that have a lifeline. And for some reason, when they have that lifeline, they're just like infinitely worse than when they go into the lower bracket, as Oxygen had to find out when they got 4 rounds over 2 maps.
Yeah, they got rolled. Obviously, but we will cover that one here. Liquid are still alive. They're going. They've got an interesting matchup in their next game here. So I think this series, if we get a bit more specific, because I know we get a bind pick here that looks pretty good for Liquid, right? I think Scream's on the Sage. They have a pretty decent game. Who is standing out here for Navi, at least at this point in the tournament, in the series? Is it who we expect? Because I know a lot of people probably like, I don't really know about this team, but they're hyped up. So yeah, go Navi.
I think
Cloud, right? Cloud and SSK are the two that at least everybody was looking at, because Cloud's like he was the original Navi member. Like, he was the guy where you go, okay, he was the one that was signed and everybody else was on trial. And then SSK is just sort of like this hyper aggressive duelist. Like, if you watch their maps of Split, for example, they almost play it like the old school Heretics, where it's just like, oh yeah, we're not going to be the most tactically deep team. We're just going to play it with like Niso and Nuki just running around and just absolutely owning everyone. And that is kind of how it went. Like, sure, I think if you look at the intricacies, there's a lot more depth than just those two players obliterating everyone. But they get a lot of opening duels. They find a lot of picks for the side, and they win a lot of clutches. It kind of helps them win the map.
I'm a really big fan of Dinks as well. Like, he's a player that I've had my eye on since pretty much the first time I saw him. We trialed him extensively for Alliance. It just didn't end up working out, but I really, really like him as a Sentinel. I think he's performing quite well. And when you look at this roster, they almost remind me of like New Turn, where they were coming into the last international event over in Iceland. When you think about the perspective a lot of people had of New Turn, it wasn't that they were going to be, obviously those in the know, those that watch VODs. For example, Van Silly had a lot of faith in them.
Silly VOD watcher, known VOD watcher. Yeah.
The general public, those who aren't like us and don't watch VODs, didn't necessarily hold New Turn to a high standard, didn't think they were going to be, a huge contender. And yeah, because consistently they were losing to the best in their region, right? They were still putting up a damn good fight, but that almost didn't mean anything when it came to the international perception. I think Navi were kind of in a similar boat up against Liquid, where, we have these votes in Twitch chat, people can put in their little channel points, and it was massively in favor of Liquid on that first map. And things started to take a little bit of a turn once you get eyes on them, once you get a couple minutes under the belt of seeing how they play. You realize it's actually a fucking sick team, great individuals who have experience playing at the top level. And between SSK, Dinks J, and Cloud, I mean, they had a damn fine series. And I was still surprised that they won. I wasn't like Tom. I didn't come in predicting them to win. Sadly,
that's my edgy pick.
Yeah, it was, to be fair. It was a little bit of an edgy pick, but you could see in that you probably would have, most people probably would have said that Liquid would stomp them, whereas I think in reality it was like slightly favored towards Liquid.
Yeah.
When, now it's being proven to be the other way.
It's kind of wild how quickly this team has come together. Very impressed to see, Navi at least take that first game. Now we get to see Forze versus Guild next. Now Guild, for me coming in here, were a little bit of a question mark. Didn't know if they were gonna, be looking completely dominant or sort of be a little bit middling or a little average here. But they take Forze to task in the first map in a huge way, right? Icebox is pretty one-sided. Do we have anything on this particular game? Because then the next map is quite close.
I think in general, Guild look really good when it comes to Icebox. I think they were the definite favorite into this matchup anyway. Like Forze were coming in as that third team that qualified through the CIS. I think the other two teams have basically schooled them whenever they'd played, and they were basically looking to try and make a bit of a name for themselves. The problem is Guild, at least from what I've seen, play this map a little bit different to everyone else. I think Bonker is someone I've really enjoyed watching this because I've seen people in NA tweet out like preach on Icebox. Like how's that even? But I really like it as a concept, almost running it as like this sort of sentinel player when it comes to their defense, just like slowing everyone down as they try and enter the sites. You've got the ultimate, which basically clears the whole of A when they go pushing in. And he just seems to set up his teammates really well. And we finally seen Yassine decide that there are other agents in the game other than Raze. And that has also helped them out quite a bit when it comes to Icebox.
I love that, you love Bonker playing this. I fucking hate it. Purely because it has made you start to play it when we play matchmaking.
Yeah, don't work.
And you're
for
not
me.
fucking Bonker. That's every
the
game.
Icebox breach.
You need good teammates. That's the problem. Like, I have to set people up, and you're already dying on the other side of the map on your.
That's the beauty of it. It's never the initiator. It's never the initiator's fault, right? It's the people that just don't follow up correctly on the utility.
Exactly.
No mention of whether the utility gets deployed correctly or the fact that initiators are expected to frag now because the gun up time is a little bit quicker. But definitely, if you're not following up on those flashes and fault lines, Mitch, you're in trouble, mate.
That's my teammates too.
I'm a Viper, so I probably shouldn't be the guy diving in on Icebox anyways. I'll look to some of my other teammates, but hey, like when you're playing with Tom,
Zilv.
There's not a lot of utility to support off of. It's sometimes kind of questionable.
Okay, Haven is the next map in this series. Much closer affair. Yeah, we get to see a little bit what Forza are capable of. I think we get overtime here in the end. This is that final round where Zeddy on the Astra has a pretty solid game. He's involved in a lot of the fighting here, but they pull up short. Forza pull up short here, and Guild are able to advance. This Forza team, if you could sort of pinpoint one thing that you felt like they were able to do really well, can you?
Delay.
Yeah.
They basically have a lot of compositions which just revolve around so much utility that you almost have to wait it out. Like this basically is that old school, like, I think it's a combination of like what Fnatic and Liquid used to do, where they basically just tried to burn out the clock. And so you're like trying to get into these sites. You're met with an ice wall, you're met with slows, you're met with stars, and there's just so many different things that you have to get through. You end up executing with 20 seconds left, and the only way that teams end up countering it is basically just trying to YOLO push through half of that utility, and it doesn't work a lot of the time. It's why when FPX tried it later on, they ended up going in with even more utility than their opponents and actually suffering a horrible fate. I think the main issue they have, though, especially on this map, I think the reason they lost is that composition kind of sucks on the attack. Like, you're really relying on your opponents to get aggressive, which luckily for at least the early rounds, that is what Guild were doing. But when it got to overtime, you're looking at it and going, well, they're not gonna do that again anymore. They know exactly your plan. You're waiting for openers, and if you're just playing a utility game, you have no entry. It's really difficult to get into the site.
I mean, seems great in the post plant, right? But getting there.
That's why they rush B. They just kept rushing B.
I mean, I guess that's Haven. I suppose you can maybe get away with it a little bit more on such a large map if you don't have like great entry prowess. You just try and hit like the weakest site possible. But again, if team wants to play up and actually take fights against you and try and stagger you out, it seems actually it's kind of poor. So this is the start of, we talked about FPX at the start of this, I think, and a little bit how they disappointed, but they don't start off that way, right? They go up against Fireflux Esports. Okay, so first of all, little unfortunate acronym there for Fireflux. We'll talk about that a little bit later on.
What?
But exactly. It becomes relevant later. But first map of this series, I mean, FPX win 2 rounds on the attack on Acend. 2 attacking rounds.
Not
They
very
got
tough, was
boomed.
it? Yeah, that was what I would call a suboptimal performance. But they managed to reverse it around, as you see on your screens. They made it into an OT game, and then won the fucking thing. And if that doesn't piss you off, I don't know what will.
I mean, yeah, okay. I mean, the fact that it gets dragged out to this point, FPX looked pretty good after losing the first round in overtime. They're able to claim it back, and we hyped up Shao a little bit at the start of the show, and he was looking pretty good. Bind is pretty one-sided here. Fireflux, what are they really bringing as a team at this point in the tournament? I don't think they're really. I think maybe people are surprised that they go so close against FPX, but realistically, FPX are probably not really exceeding expectations even after this series.
I think Fireflux are like the fucking Titanic in this event, to be honest. They come in, you're like, hey, this could be a nice little journey. Let's take a trip. And you decide to go on. Everything's looking good. You know, you get 10 rounds in the first half. Hey, this is a great little journey. I might have a couple of whiskeys before I steer the boat home tonight. And then we hit a fucking iceberg.
They're a bit young for that.
Everything goes to shit. Well, yeah, true. They'll have a couple.
I think that's the issue.
Apple juices. Yeah.
I think that was the thing that they crumbled. I think they've got some incredibly young, like Turkish players that they basically brought in, and I think the main thing that was missing for them is like leadership. I'm not entirely sure who the in-game leader was, but when it came to their attacking sides, there wasn't a lot of bright ideas, and they didn't seem to use these young talents. Whereas when you were looking at the defensive side, they could basically just post up players like Lores, and he would just hit the most ridiculous flicks and headshots you've ever seen. Like, if you want a frag movie, watch that first half versus FPX, because like there were so many just quick transition shots that I was like, okay, this kid's gonna be amazing in like a year or maybe next time they come into a tournament. But they just crumbled on the attack, and strategically, it just looked a little rough.
And I'm told that some of these players from Rust and Silver and Shah, some of them like 16, right? Super young roster. A guy up against a super veteran in Angel and that particular squad there. So real sort of old versus young kind of matchup. And I think seeing Fireflux show a little bit of flair early on here, it puts them in good stead. At least maybe raises expectations, because I know a lot of people were maybe not. Some people were like, "Hey, look out for Supermassive Blaze. Look out for some of these Turkish teams." Right? But we've seen, for example, Oxygen a fair bit before, and we weren't. I don't think we were blown away by what we'd seen from them in past, like EMEA, finals. Excuse me, sort of playoffs. But they go up against Giants Gaming, Oxygen versus Giants Gaming. This is the last match of the upper round 1 here. Giants are on a fucking roll. Like, no one really thinks that much of this team, and then they just blitz their way through and end up with obviously a really decent seed. They run into Oxygen here, and I don't know too many people that are expecting them to lose this. Are either of you expecting this result when you come into this?
No, they also ruined my prediction. We're going down that route. Yeah, they were one of the teams that I was surprised at. I think that the fact is, for Giants, when they come up against the top teams, I think a lot of the top teams are not expecting them to necessarily play the way they did. And in fact, you even see it later on with Giants when they play again in the grand final, which it was a seeding match, so take it as you will. But you could see that Liquid had done a lot more research and were actually countering a lot of the plays of people like David P. Like, he loves to lurk. He loves to sit in the back of mid when it comes to a map like Acend. And I don't think it went anywhere near as well when they tried it versus Oxygen. So I think the fact is Oxygen came in as another underdog in this tournament, knowing that after you have to remember last time they played, one of the maps they got eliminated on, they got 13-0'd. I think they wanted to make a better impression coming into EMEA, and I think they did their prep.
Good start at the very least. I saw so much shit being talked by David P in the lead up to this tournament. He went quiet. He got humble for a little bit, but then I think coming into this, he was feeling really, really confident. So what do you think about the split game then? 13-2, pretty one-sided stuff here. Meadow goes 20-8 over the course of this map. Do you feel like just Oxygen maybe can't really get a feel for Giants' attack because they get 2 defensive rounds? I think they win the pistol, then they lose the second round, and then they only get 1 more round in that particular half here.
I think it's map pool. I think this is always the thing when we come with a lot of Turkish teams. Like, you look at maps like Ascent, for example, they could play anyone on Ascent, but then you go back, even just looking with the last time they played Split, they played it once in the entire side of when they played in Turkey. The last time they played it before that was versus Guild last time. So it's like they just don't play like a couple of the maps within the pool. And I think that's, other than maybe Supermassive Blaze, that's always going to be the weakness of some of the Turkish teams, is I just think that when you're playing best of threes, you know you're going to get an Acend and one other map that you like to play. So a lot of the time they don't have that depth of practice when it comes to maps like Split, which largely in Turkey is not that popular a map.
Okay. So can you explain to me, the way this format is working is that there's not really any bans. I mean, what are there? These two teams are picking their maps.
Then they get a ban each.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. So
I
like
think it's ban each and then pick.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I was wondering. I wanted to.
Which is weird.
Yeah,
So it's like
I was
ban,
saying-
ban,
pick,
right?
exactly.
So,
So like
like a team
upper
gets
seed
two
has
picks, which
2
is-
picks.
Kind of
Yeah.
strange.
So if you're trying to catch up, you're looking at VLR.gg, it doesn't show the ban. So I was kind of wondering how we got, like what's being banned by Oxygen to allow Split to sort of be in this pool, but that's fine. I digress. Last map of the series, though, obviously it ends up going to 3 here. It's Breeze. This, I think, is just the remaining map here. And Giants end up losing out. Oxygen come out on top here on Breeze, which again gives us some, erroneous results, I think, due to its sort of nature. But, I think this shocks a lot of people. Giants, they talk the talk, they walk the walk all the way up until, this first round of the upper bracket, and then they fall out.
I think this is another one where they've played it at least a bit, and I was still leaning in towards them winning it. But again, the results for Giants are not fantastic. I think that's actually the weakness of both of these teams, is like this ended up being a middle ground that I don't think either of them have shown that they're particularly good at. So it's like the similar thing I think happened when they played against Navi. Like it just didn't look particularly good, especially even on the attack, which was a little bit questionable considering for most teams that's the much stronger of the half. So again, as a close series, I think that a lot of people underestimated Oxygen, and up until Team Liquid played them when they just let Scream kill everyone, and that was slightly different.
And Mitzes on the Astra as well was really, really important for that. For the last map in particular, like the fact that he was able to find, I think it was when it was 9-9, that we saw Mitzes go into the B site, find a 3K, next round goes A site, manages to clean up a few there as well. And it felt like, he wasn't entering by any means. That would just be fucking ludicrous. But he was able to trade out his teammates, play around them on that Astra really well. And it sort of gives you that little bit of extra freedom. Once you've placed your stars, if you're running out of that utility, you've already popped them. Yeah, start to get aggressive. Start to play that second man in and trade out your guys that are going to be trying to expand themselves. He had a fantastic series. And I think statistically, maybe he wasn't towards the top, but they wouldn't have won that map without him towards the last couple of rounds.
Can we flash the bracket again? Because those were our 4 first-round matchups here. So Navi over T, obviously, a bit of an upset here. Forze, close but no cigar here. We move on to match 5. So this is our second round of upper bracket games. Acend have been waiting in the upper bracket, of course, as they qualified, through the first of these finals. They go up against Navi. They choose Breeze. They just fucking pick Breeze straight up here in this series. And in we go without any further ado. Is it the CNET show again?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, normally
I don't think anyone's. It can't be. I'll tell you what. I could have zoned out for everything you just said and heard. Is it the CNET show again? I went, yep, yeah, perfect. Like, the dude is just fucking nuts. And one of the most exciting prospects that we have. I mean, spoilers, but I think everyone knows, right? The upper final game.
Is he a
that we'll
prospect
have
anymore?
Ascend and Supermassive.
True. Is he a prospect?
True,
he is
no,
the best
he's
player in the
fucking
entire
nuts.
EMEA. He's a good prospect. He might be an up and comer.
Might get some value to him later.
He
Worth
shits on
investment.
everyone so far. I don't think
Every
you call
team.
him a prospect anymore.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Yeah. Like the dude, considering he came in, originally there were whispers about him in Europe of like, oh, this guy's pretty good. And everyone's telling you like, yo, when these games start, keep an eye on CNET, see what he does. But then the team that they assembled was originally, the whispers I had heard around the pro scene was like, oh, it's just CNET and some dudes, it's just 4 guys playing with him. They're not going to be that big of a deal and whatever. And we saw them play and we're like, oh, okay, these guys are pretty good. Look at Masters 1. You definitely know that they're a solid team, but they have developed so much since then. And the fact that they're keeping the roster so heavily focused on that title, on taking first place every game that they have, it seems like, first of all, they've got some inclination on how their opponents want to play. They've got a good idea of how they want to go against it. It's not just like go in and shoot, but then they add to that by just having this like massive buff on top of them that if anything goes wrong, or on average every second round, CNED's just gonna fuck them up. Like, you have to be so good as a team to beat these guys. Because you make one little mistake, CNED's got 5 kills.
How confident are you guys in actually saying that this guy might be the best Jet AWPer player in the world? Like, is that out of the question at this point?
I'd say it's within the realm. Like,
he's...
with what he's been doing to like top teams in Europe, like teams that we've been like raving about for a while, teams that have been able to compete with the best. Yeah, like the guy, it's so like I've been sat here waiting for him eventually to get shut down by someone. And then even in series where like you might like, it's weird because you'd say like quote unquote a quiet game, because his quiet games are still better than most people's games.
Yeah, we'll shut him down.
He'll just switch, like maybe he has a bad half, it switches over to defense, and even if he's playing like Sage, he'll just shit on anyone that walks into his crosshair. Yeah. And the other thing as well that's just peculiar about it is like me and Mitch have gone back and watched some clips. Where you'll see moments
Can't believe you watched
where you like think, is this guy like just the biggest brain play you've ever seen? Like milliseconds of things are happening
or
that I could look at
opposite?
for a few minutes and watch it like and break it down. Or is he just dashing into a smoke and just killing everyone? It just happens to be that he manages to do it correctly every time.
Yeah. And skillful
what's the
genius,
verdict?
Lucky moron. We don't know. We don't know which
one.
Yeah, we don't know.
Ye will stop him. Pens will stop him. Wardell could stop him if he actually was
out of here. Get back on your fence, silly. You're gonna get fucked up.
Wait, when will Wardell stop him?
That's what I was saying. If Wardell was on the stage.
If Wardell ever qualifies for anything.
They were good enough to qualify. Yeah,
I believe.
If NA had more slots,
we're talking about individual skills here.
Yeah.
We're talking about individual skills as Jet. I still believe that Wardell could maybe beat
Who has more spots for this event, by the way? Is it EMEA or is it NA?
Yeah, because you guys need it.
Oh, we need. Okay, yeah. I can't wait for CNED to fuck you up. I cannot.
You need to take the whole top 4. That's why.
I mean, even in Iceland, I knew that a lot of European people were saying, Sen's not there. I'm just saying, like, you know, we might not be showing out. I mean, look, this is a fucked up scoreline from CNED, to be honest with you.
I wasn't saying that at the time, but because Fnatic and Liquid well, Fnatic definitely no longer here. They went out quite a while ago. And Liquid, well, we'll see how that lower bracket run goes.
I'm just saying, look, guys.
They're in treacherous zones. I'm saying it now. Yeah, Acend, they're the best. I've always believed it. They're great. Let's go. If they were at Iceland, Sentinels would have lost every map.
I feel like if you Europools shit the bed again, like there has to be a gag order on you guys. Like you just can't be allowed to say your teams are going to win anymore. Because look, I'll give it to you. I will say that. I mean, yeah, there's a good chance that Europe look pretty good. EMEA, kind of strong region, looking pretty dominant. But if you lose another fucking Masters event, like Christ almighty,
dog shit region like NA as well, then yeah, we'll have to fucking watch yourselves. You're right. You got that one.
Oh, shit. All right. Can we move on? Let's talk about Gambit versus Guild. This is another upper bracket matches. You know, we see Guild kind of squeak through. Gambit obviously also joining them here. Gambit were pre-seeded up here, so they didn't play in that first round. And we start things off on Ascent. Gambit win the pistol in the next round. And then Guild honestly string some decent defensive efforts together. The Astra here for Leo looks pretty dominant at points.
Leo is genuinely, like, I think one of the hottest prospects in the entirety of EU, because he's again an incredibly young player. I think he's only 17 years old, but yet he's playing all the like what I would consider to be the toughest agents to frag on. Like they're ones where you can easily be caught out, and you're almost having to try and put yourselves in positions to thrive. And again, a lot of the time you're thinking, oh, this dude's just going to be playing this agent to almost set up your scene, and then he'll win you a map almost single-handedly. Like, I think that picking him up is one of the best pieces of business that Guild will ever do, especially if he manages to only get better. Because as I said, he's incredibly young, but he plays like someone who's been playing for years.
I mean, he has no personal mobility. Like he's playing. This is what I always wondered about, like Astra players. Like no personal mobility. You know, like nothing that you can really deploy at the drop of a hat. So much of it is premeditated that, you know, if someone plays contact against you and you're not set up, you don't have anything to really try and give yourself an advantage in any sort of duel. I'm always quite impressed when I see, you know, not only Astra players that are able to, you know, win their duels, but, you know, also just look really stalwart when it comes to defending and holding these sites. So, I mean, this Gambit team gets talked up a fair bit, I think. The only team that seemed to not respected as much was Acend, but we'll get onto that. Is this from the information we've been able to gather? Obviously, Icebox is really close. We have a ton of close Icebox matches. Seem like a lot of teams in Europe look really good on it. Maybe it's got to do with just how powerful the Viper still is on this particular map. But I mean, any insights to glean from this second map here, which ultimately gets squeezed out by Gambit?
This map was amazing. Like I was watching, because obviously there was the A stream and the B stream. But I saw the Gambit and Guild, and I was like, "There's no way I can miss this map." There is a clutch that comes out from Draken to keep them in the map, which was a 1 versus 4 clutch, and it was one of the most unbelievable things I've ever seen. Like this, if there are people who didn't watch this map because it was on the B stream, go back and watch it. It was so enjoyable. There's so many ridiculous clutches. You got players like Defo just running around and absolutely like obliterating people with the operator. I think that, again, if you ever haven't looked into Gambit too much, they're basically a squad that has like a superstar in every single role, almost like the Gambit in Counter-Strike, where you're just like, I don't really know how they've managed to get all of these people together in one team without anybody stopping them. And then you just see them like pick up, like, even Nats. Like, my favorite player to watch maybe in the entirety of Valorant is Nats, just because he's probably the rattiest Cypher I've ever seen in my life. Like, the man, you know, people started sort of like just sitting in cams for the beginning of rounds. He's been doing that for like 6 months to a year, just sitting there in the cam at beginning and just going, right, they've all gone this way.
He's actually double dipping and getting paid as an observer as well.
Yeah, exactly.
On his cam.
We could have used him a few months ago in the EU, to be honest. But when you look at the last game we did, Tom, you remember there was around, I think there was like 40 seconds left, 50 seconds left, and the guys are like shift walking out to B, thinking they've got it, and there's a camera right above them. It's been there literally a minute and a half. This guy's just been sat on backside B on the Ascent, staring at his little phone, waiting for them to come in. It's ridiculous. The amount of patience that he has. Like, I almost wanted us to just observe a whole round from his perspective, just to see Twitch chat.
It would just be the cam.
Come on, show us something. Something happened. It's like, this guy does that for 20 rounds straight. How do you think he feels?
Yeah, motherfucker's like a Zen monk out there. Been out there in the fucking monastery, taught not to pick up his gun. He's like a fucking pacifist. You know what I mean? I mean, look, I feel like Gambit was definitely looking scary coming into this event. I feel like the CIS region kind of cannibalized themselves before Iceland with how some of the matches went, and like how they ended up having to sort of play against each other a lot of the time, and the fact that Fnatic and Liquid were just a little bit better when it came to playoffs here. But I mean, seeing Gambit advance against a quality team like Guild, I'm starting to think, oh, hang on a minute. These other regions are starting to pick up some steam. And that takes us to the next match of interest. It's match number 7, according to this bracket. It is Supermassive Blaze versus FPX. Shocking to see a 2-0 on there, especially if you're a pleb like me and you don't watch enough fucking Turkish Valorant. First map, holy shit. FPX win the first 2, yeah. And then Supermassive Blade, they settle into really comfortable defense here. And this is obviously the second half where FPX are trying to hang on, but they lose the pistol and it all goes south from there.
But this is the funny thing about this is also the game where all the like shitty tech issues happen with like the Turkish servers. So you're almost seeing an inflated scoreline for FPX because they won some rounds where it was like a 1v1 and a player just ran straight into a wall. So it's like this is inflated. Like, they actually got beaten worse than the scoreline suggests, which is somewhat surprising. But again, this is another squad where, firstly, I hope that they release POV demos at some point so I can just watch Izzy play and slowly have a mental breakdown with how much shit that he managed to get away with that makes absolutely no sense to anybody watching Valorant. It's amazing. Like, it's the same thing you get with CNED, but I almost feel like he's more aggressive than CNED, which is a statement in itself.
We get that fight. We get that.
Yeah, they're gonna play each other. It's gonna break the game.
So
the observers are fucked. That's all I'm gonna say. Like, they are screwed.
So now explain this to me, because I think what Tanzik, or how the fuck you say his name, he tweeted that there was some routing issues, and that was why they experienced the problems on the Turkish server. Do you guys know any more about that? Is it just because that's just how their servers are working that caused those problems? Did you guys get any like tech insight on that?
We weren't working that day, so I'm not sure what was said, like on the Discord and stuff. Verbally would have seen the text, but from what I understand, it's just unlucky servers went down.
Yeah, I think it was something to do with Turkish servers in general. I don't know if it's just directly to do with them.
Okay.
So that's why in a lot of the cases, like for example, when it was like a 5v5 in one of the rounds, they weren't penalized. They replayed the round because it was not something that was within their control. So, and then you also had the nice the nice little hashtag that actually ended up trending with like 14,000 tweets or something absurd. Like the Turkish community just
fans,
went, all right, come on then, you're going to try and take us on. You're going to have to replay that. Because initially, I think Mixo actually tweeted out like, oh, well, someone had died, so we're not replaying it. And then I think like 10 minutes later, he went, actually, we are now replaying it. And everyone went, yeah. Well, we thought that might
fucking
change.
thought so. You look at what happens every time we do these player of the match votes. You go over to Twitter.
Yep.
At
You mean CNET of the match
EU.
votes?
Yeah. So if CNET is on there, I swear to God, the dude could get 3 fucking kills. He has had games. There was a day, wasn't there, Tom, where Bone Cold got like just a stupid amount of kills. Like he had an insane game, and I think it was on Acend that we finished the series. This is going back now to the I think the Challengers qualifiers, the first ones, and tweet went out. It was Bone Cold. I can't remember the other person, and CNED, who were up for vote. And CNED had actually a bad map. Like I think one of the first ones I've ever seen where he didn't really frag. Bone Cold was out of his mind. It was so clear. Even if you didn't watch the match, you open the scoreboard, you go, oh, Bone Cold, cool. And CNED had won it by like 50%. It's just like, what the fuck?
He now has to, if he thinks that he doesn't deserve it, he now has to go on the tweets and say like, don't
Please.
vote for me, vote for someone else. Otherwise, no one else will ever beat him in a vote.
Even when he doesn't win, he tells the people who wins. Like he decides, no, you should vote for this guy. And then everyone's like,
he
okay,
runs the ship
CNED.
now. He's the captain.
That's mental. And that's what I honestly like. If I reckon the Spanish and Portuguese speaking communities would also be like that as well. Just insane number of people, which is just sick. Okay, let's cover the second map in the series before we cover some breaking news here. We go to Split in this series. I can't actually see, again, can't see the bans. Annoying. This is just what's left in the pool by the looks of things now. And FPX start hot. Both these teams have good attacking sides. I can't say the same for the defenses though, and that's why we sort of get as close as we do. But this is FPX sort of trying to hold out here. They win 1 defending round. 1.
Yeah. This was the weirder one because obviously this ended up being like half of it was played one day and then half of it was played the next morning.
Yeah, it's like,
when it was played the next morning, FPX didn't win a round. I don't think. I think they just got absolutely destroyed. The thing is, they went into this game with what looks like an incredibly attacking comp, and it was basically like at least the success on their attack came from Shadow just setting up Demasik, who was basically just farming up Run It Back. Yes, by the way, they did play a Phoenix on Split, which I don't think is something I've ever really seen. It was a peculiar one, and they didn't do it again mysteriously when they went into the next matchup. But it meant that their defensive side just didn't really have much behind it, like because they removed their Cypher from play, which Demasik Cypher was always very, very good on this map. So it was a bit of a risk. Again, I feel like it's one of those games where if I want a duelist in this map, I want it to be Zipan and I want it to be on a raise, but they are constantly trying to outbrain and outsmart their opponents. And for the first half, I guess they kind of did. It's just their defense just wasn't good enough.
Oh, well, again, I think people are starting to realize now. Okay, so what's the takeaway here then? FPX seriously underperforming and Supermassive Blaze are just a really legit team. Like, how? What is the reaction like to this result?
I think that's where I'm at for sure. I think Supermassive Blaze are an incredible team. Like the way that it's shaping up right now, the teams that are in that upper bracket final are almost. I mean, they are our strongest. It's being proven, right? But Supermassive Blaze deserve it. There's no way to argue that they sort of looked their way there or anything. They've been tested by multiple different teams with different play styles, and they
weren't tested by
fucking
G2.
Perfect. Well, yeah. Well, in theory, they were tested and they passed with flying colors. Let's put it that way.
They aced that test.
They had the answers before they went into that one. Yeah, it was nice.
Let's cover some breaking news before we move on here. We just saw Halil Thoughts reporting that 2 standout alliance players, Kadavra and Jusu, I mean, he spelled it incorrectly, but that's fine.
It was autocorrect. He corrected it afterwards.
I see. the Vitality are interested in them, and they're trialing these players. So that's a
Can
big
Vitality
shuffle.
sign anything other than duelists?
No,
Like,
no. Whoever scouts in Vitality is on some crack. I think that's pretty clear at this point. The most mismanaged roster I've ever fucking seen, and let's add in. That's not true. I think NIP probably take the cake, but Vitality are a close second on that one. They are ready to just fuck up their team. I think that they have a very two-dimensional understanding of like, this guy, good statistic, good, shoot good, very good, pick him up. Yes, 5 good statistic, big win. No, that's not how this shit works. You can't have 5 fucking duelists. They tried it once, didn't work. They tried it twice, didn't work. They'll try it another time. Maybe it'll work. It fucking won't though.
The weirdest one ever was signing Loki as a Sova, having everybody else on the team being a duelist, and then moving him to duelist and having everyone else support.
Yeah.
Like, that is the most
and then kicking him immediately
mental
afterwards.
decision. Yeah, and then kicking him afterwards.
So they clearly
And
didn't have a
also-
lot of fucking faith in that decision either. So, genuinely, some hard drugs are being done. Is the only reason that I can actually like process what's going on. I look at the decision making and go, crack cocaine, probably, yeah.
What does this mean for the current Vitality roster, though? Like, if you guys had to guess, is it the Lithuanians that are getting fucked over here, or like, what are they? Who are they looking to replace?
If it is, they're mad.
You want to guess? You want to guess what's happening with the Vitality roster? All right, go ahead. Yeah. Have fun.
We got a random number generator that we can throw in here to see.
Oh,
if
I've
they're
got a
gonna kick
roulette
from
wheel
this
here.
one.
Let's pull that out. Predict the future. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. I think if you just put their pictures on a dartboard and just gave it a whack, you're probably approaching the same level of thought that's going into some of these choices. For me, it's
Sender
really
will
confusing.
probably be on duelist now. That'll be the new move, because he's the only one out of them who hasn't played duelist, so
Chuck
they
him
have
on.
to thus move him to duelist. And then I think Jusu,
Vac, you
from being
really-
a jet main, will probably now be playing maybe Viper or Cypher.
Yeah,
I think that's
yeah.
probably their call.
No,
like
I'd
something
say
along those lines.
you put Vac on Cypher, right? Yeah, definitely put
Yeah,
him on.
yeah.
They might
that's a good
splash the
call.
cash, sign CNED, get him to play like a really nice Viper as well. It could be fantastic. Yeah.
All right, I
Big
get the
fans,
impression that
Vitality.
you two aren't exactly thrilled about this particular move. So apparently, actually, no, wait, Loki and Shalaby were dropped, right? That was
Yeah.
known to us.
Shalaby
though.
went back
we knew
to
that. Okay, so
Ibis,
that I didn't know that, but there
Sorry,
you
let
go.
me
Thank you, Ryan.
quickly, let me once again. So Loki, who's coming in, signed as a Sova, forced to play, chose to play, don't know, as a jet, plays as a jet, doesn't do that well, especially compared to some of the players in the roster. They drop him. Shalakbi had to play on what, 1,000 ping, dropped as well. So I mean, these players weren't exactly given the right amount of space to grow. And I think that in
He
a
also
roster,
wasn't playing his agents.
oh yeah, sorry. Also
He's a
wasn't
jet
playing
main, and they
duelist.
made him play Sky.
But-
Like, it was
but of
just
course,
the
because-
weirdest thing ever.
Because Loki had to play Jet, of course. So I mean, it's all making sense now, isn't it? But yeah, it is an odd situation, and I really fucking hope it doesn't reflect that poorly on the players, especially Shalakbi, because he has so much fucking promise. But look, when you get players like that, you don't know how to get the most out of them. You put them into roles that you think will work on paper. You don't think about what actually works for them. How to
Yeah.
Okay.
how to
And
just
your
how to get
last
the most
chance
out of
as
them.
well.
Yeah, it's gonna go to shit every single time.
I like that name, Shalakbi.
Shalakbi.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
pretty sure that's how it's pronounced.
Yeah, well,
Give me this now.
he's Egyptian. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Because that was that entire roster that
Correct.
performed really well at the Red Bull.
Campus Clutch, yeah.
Anubis boys.
Won it.
yeah.
It was clutch. Okay, so let's move on. Let's talk about GT versus Oxygen. We're still in this upper bracket. We'll get a little. I think we'll maybe move a little quicker through the lower bracket at some points here. But this is match number 8 here. So it's your your upper quarterfinals, I suppose. And we get Icebox to start this one off. Jesus Christ. G2 look very comfortable on this map. Kellogg's is an absolute psycho. He's actually fucking psychotic. This guy
Yeah.
he doesn't go down gears. Every time I've watched him, especially on this map, especially on defense, I've seen him just fucking yeet himself into mid on defense and just try and fuck something up. Guy's crazy.
I really love whenever like Mixwell or someone is asked questions about Kellogg's, because you can always see the sort of ticking of his brain where he goes, do I say he's insane? Or do I just say that, like, oh, yeah, he's got a few things that he needs to work on here and there, like maybe being slightly less aggressive at times? It's like, it's two sides of a coin. Like, they have brought him into this team to basically just be this no-fear guy who's going to go in and absolutely own anyone. The problem is, when it doesn't work, he doesn't yet have that second gear. Like he doesn't have that fallback where he's just going to be like, oh, now I'll be a little bit smarter in the way that I move. It's still just going to be like almost Yumpy when he moved it over to the game. It was like, why is he dashing into a smoke with a shotgun every round? It's like, yeah, because he needs to have that extra level, and then he's going to be a superstar because he's already like destroying a lot of very good players now. If he gets that extra experience, again, he's going to be one of those players that you fear.
Do you actually think that, you know, keloqz needs a bit more subtlety? Do you feel like he would, you know, benefit from slowing
That's
it down?
Doing.
Yeah.
It like depends on the round. Like G2 have the players where if he's dashing in to make them space and you've got Nuki following up behind him, I would bet like 99 times out of 100 that Nuki's going to trade whatever kill he's going to be hit by. And there's also then like a 50% chance that keloqz kills the guy on his own anyway. So if they have the support, it's just when it comes to like after plant situations and you'll see him sometimes just dash in and get killed and then they might lose a silly round. That's where he needs to learn his thing. His actual role on the attack to go into sites. Like, yeah, if he gets killed, that doesn't matter. It's what then happens afterwards from G2 and if it was part of the plan or if he's gone off the rails a little bit.
At this point in the tournament, are you doubting, is there any reason to doubt G2? Like, are they looking shaky in some areas that you thought that they wouldn't or better? Like, how are you tracking on them after these upper quarterfinals?
So after the Oxygen game.
Yeah, it was the upper semifinals where it was a little bit...
The opening game was great for them. They did a fantastic job. Second map was a little shaky. I don't think we can really critique them too much for that. But yeah, at the next point, there were definitely some questions.
That was a hard cast.
It was like fucking DJing a funeral.
You said that multiple times
I
on
did.
the cast.
It was a genuine feeling. I've never felt so much like there's a casket right in front of me, and I'm going, "Let's go!" Like it's fucked up. Like it was just
like,
hard.
It
was hard to watch.
with the guys like in Africa carrying.
It's like honestly, I found myself, and like we weren't on camera or anything, but like I found myself multiple times just sat there like this after finishing a play-by-play, or like I hand a retake to Tom. It's like a 2v5, and all of a sudden everyone's fucking dead, and I'm just like, how I felt genuine pain during that game.
All right.
Is the best.
Hey,
way
we'll
to
get there.
describe it.
We'll get there. Let's talk about. Let's go through the lower bracket real quick here. So, TL take on Oxygen here in the lower bracket round 1. I mean, this Oxygen looks dead. I mean, that
was a hard cast too.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, talking about sort of celebrating over a coffin here. This is, I mean, Oxygen win like round 3. I think they get their first gun round, they win, and that is fucking it. They get grouped on.
Yeah.
This leads back to like, I think it was an interview with Link that we had at the end where he basically said something on the lines of like, yeah, we've been trying to like almost outsmart everyone for like quite a while, and we decided over the last couple of weeks to just like play the agents we're comfortable on and have a little bit more fun with it. That is fucking terrifying. Like the shit that they were doing, like it just got to the point where you were just like almost sat there like, is there any part of the map that Liquid just won't take away from them? Is there any clutch that they can't win? Is there, especially map 2? Map 2 was just basically Scream going, I'm going to push fucking everything on defense and see if they can do anything about it. And well, if anybody didn't watch the map, you can tell by the score.
Just pushing.
They didn't have anything. Like, yeah, he was doing this the whole game. There was a point where he had 500 like ACS after like 8 or 10 rounds.
Yeah,
he was just running around on defense, killing everyone. And it was fucking stupid.
Genuinely, like I feel like when we have tournaments, we're obviously we're looking for the victor, but majority of the time we're sat there and we're trying to find the gold in the muck, right? You're just going through it, you're shifting all that muck aside in the water. I don't know how they do it, but they found gold somehow. That's shit. Get that tooth out of there. That's where that one went. But this is definitely one of those, bits you just discard and you don't ever think about it again. It was
delete the VOD.
If you went back and tried to do a breakdown of some of these rounds, like genuinely try to analyze some of the plays, you would end up just critiquing the shit out of Team Liquid. You'd be like, what the fuck are you doing? It's a terrible engagement. Why are you doing? But there comes a point where you genuinely sit back and go, we are fucking better than these people. Let's go and show them. And you have to play loose like that. You just go, you style on them. It's what they did. It worked. And it's about all there was to say for,
I like
2 hours
in a lower bracket, to be honest. Like, if you feel like you're definitely going to win, like it's a decent way to build up some confidence and not have to like tax yourself mentally if you're just trying to fucking think too hard. This one, okay, so Forze go up against FPX.
Oh, God.
This is the continued down spiral of Fun plus Phoenix. It starts well for them in first map, but the second map is a 46 rounds. Oh, I mean, anyone will be boomed after this. FPX won the first map pretty handily here, but I mean, this was just a titanic struggle, gentlemen.
That was a fun cast. It went on a while. What was it, an hour and 46, Tom? For that map?
I don't know. I didn't have my
Someone said
stopwatch out. Like, if I had any hair left, I would have ripped it out. Like,
it says it on VLR, yeah. So Icebox was 30 minutes. I was like, we'd also had like obviously the Oxygen game that day.
Such a good clutch.
The Oxygen game was super one-sided. So like, just to paint the picture of the day, we have a game where one team finds 4 rounds in a best of 3. Then we move on to a 13-4 that was 30 minutes long. And I'm already like, literally, I got my girlfriend to put on the dinner. I was like, well, I'm going to be done this pretty fucking quick. That was actually when it was 12. No, that was the first round of overtime. FPX won it. And then I text my girlfriend. I'm like, yo, you can put the dinner on. And I'll be down in like, I should be down by half an hour, right?
So you have a girlfriend? You watch VODs, you have a girlfriend?
What don't you do? Holy fuck.
Yeah, and then we ended up...
There's a few things about that, though, because like, I've tweeted before as well saying, oh, it must be really tough having long games as a commentator. Yeah. And I shit you not, there was a guy who responded to that tweet saying, because of this, you're going to have a game that goes 24-22. And I was like, I saw that afterwards. I think that was retweeted by so many fucking people because he predicted the scoreline of the longest game in VCT history just before it happened.
I tweeted him.
Which is
asking for lottery numbers.
Exactly.
Did the map crash? Did the server crash for that one?
No.
Really?
It didn't.
The guys I mean,
you know what?
Actually,
I'd be
a crypto millionaire by now.
I'll say at one point, I thought of that in the game. I thought 90 minutes, and I was like, oh my fucking God. If we end up at like 2020 and this game just dies.
Yeah.
I think it's only sometimes. I don't think it's every single time. I think it's sometimes it crashes.
Oh, so it's an RNG to know if it crashes or not. That's unfortunate.
I didn't know how long it had been at that point. I was like, oh no, please.
Okay, Ryan says it's fixed. Ryan Central says it's the new tournament client is fixed.
Didn't they say it was fixed though, and then it broke in another game like a day later or 2 days later? Unless it's fixed again, in which case then fair enough.
Could be fixed again. Double fixed.
Also, can we ban Hypox from chat for saying it's gone to double digits in the 2s? Can we ban him for that?
That's the
not an allowed term.
That was what Mitch said when it was 2020. It's gone to double digits in the 2s. It's the stupidest thing anyone's ever said.
I would like to be clear. The Red Bull was crashing, everything was crumbling, and it was like an hour and a half in. My sanity went out the window.
We've got to double digits in the 2s.
No, I didn't believe we've gone to double digits. There was a long pause while I thought if I could recover that, because obviously it had already been double digits for a long time. And my brain in that moment was reaching out and it found in the 2s and went, that's it. That's the one. Say it. And as soon as it came out, I went, oh, fuck. Then Tom pissed himself laughing half a second later.
Come on. Who's not going to piss himself laughing?
You went from digging a hole to hitting the fucking water main in the bottom of the hole, mate. Yeah.
I was drowning.
Unlucky. Let's talk about this next match here. Another of our lower bracket games. Again, these are all elimination games. So there's a lot on the line. Guild Esports versus Fireflux Esports. Okay. Unfortunate that they're FF because they should have done that in map number 2. But let's talk about Split here. And I mean, I don't know. Like, look, Fireflux, like they 5 rounds on defenses. I guess it's fine until you lose the pistol and then do fuck all in the second half on attack.
They can't play attack. That's basically what we learned from the previous series, going 10-2 on defense. They just don't. I don't know if this is just like a bad couple of games from them. It's possible that it is, but it's always hard to gauge against some of the other teams in Turkey, like how good they're going to be themselves. Like, there are a lot of looser teams, especially the further down you go. But yeah, it just seems like every time they get onto attacking side, they were lost. And started on defense on this second map. And
I mean, Sociable got 1 kill, I think, on the entirety of Acend. Completely shut down on this jet.
What ping were these guys playing on, though? Genuinely, like, I mean, I know CNET is gonna, be an exception to that, where you say like, well, he plays
and the whole of Supermassive Blaze.
Yeah. But I mean, look, some people in worse regions, like, it can genuinely affect you. I've played on 70 ping where I thought, hey, this is okay, and then I played on 70 ping where I've wanted to forfeit the game instantly because it feels like absolute shit. So it's always a little bit of a consideration, but for the most part, these guys just got fucking dunked on.
They're young, maybe lacking like a strong IGL presence here.
No.
To do as well as they did is fair enough. But we know we know that maybe like the Turkish scene has like a couple really strong teams, but maybe the depth just isn't really there yet. And this kind of happens, I think, in the nascency of the scene. It's like you have like a couple really strong standout teams, and then there's not a lot of substrata to that. It tends to fall off a little bit. Yep.
Sentinels got lucky. Everyone else kind of
just one strong team and then no one else.
Yeah.
Strong,
lucky. You know,
Sure.
yeah, these words are
Sure.
All right. Let's look at our other lower bracket.
Who has more hopium here? Is it me on KO or Mitch Man thinking that EU is gonna fucking win Berlin?
I don't give a shit if EU wins Berlin. This is the strength. I couldn't give a fuck. As long as anyone other than NA wins Berlin, I'm pretty fucking happy. It could be SEA. It could be Brazil. Fireflux could magically get there under a new flag.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
I wouldn't care if they cheated to get in. At this point, as long as it's not North America, I am very happy.
Bring back Optic India. They're going to come
Get
in.
Forsaken in here. Let's go.
Optic India. Okay.
Yeah, Optic India's going to return, and at the helm is going to be Stunner. They're just going to fucking turn up and just dominate.
I want to see fuck CNED versus Tens. Let's get Forsaken versus Tens. Let's see that battle.
Oh my god.
Okay, let's talk about Vodafone, Giants, and Navi.
Tournamentrealm.exe.
We're expecting the Giants to probably claw their way out of this lower bracket, but I tell you what, it's not fucking easy, is it? Acend ends up being really, really close. Cloud is continuing to just be an incredible force across this whole series and across, in fact, the whole run for Navi. The guy is a cut above, I've got to say. There's not one map that he doesn't top frag. He's at least +5 in kill death. I mean, he goes absolutely fucking bonkers on Breeze, and he's not even playing duelists. Like, what the fuck? He plays Raze actually in map 3, right?
He's the one that Gambit missed. Like I think that's the only like young, incredible talent. Well, actually, he's not the only one. There's been plenty from the CIS, but he has definitely shown himself to be a star. I think especially him and SSK have proven in this tournament that they can do damage versus anyone. And I genuinely think with a bit more time, Navi are going to be a real threat to a lot of the EMEA teams when it comes to qualification. And they do have a lot of time to do it. The only worry for me is that Navi are one of those organizations that they're going to have a lot of young talent to pick from. In fact, like if you look at them in Counter-Strike, they literally have at one point they had an academy on an academy because they just kept picking up so many different players that they were having like the youngsters and then the even younger youngsters, like junior and youngsters and all this different stuff. So I'd be a little bit worried with the amount of time that they now have before anything else is going to be coming up because of them being out of last chance qualifier and obviously then no chance for champions, that we might not see this exact iteration again because we've already seen like players like Durka, for example, just come out of like playing within the CIS, move straight over to a team like Fnatic, and well, they finished second at the Masters event. So I could easily see them picking up an extra player or two along the way.
I'll tell you, looking at the Navi team as well, like there are 2 players on that roster that we trialed initially for the Alliance roster. And I was in love with them as players. I think that they're huge as SSK and DinksJ. The only reason that they didn't get picked up and the reason that other people went out on those roles over them was because of their English. Honestly, like comfort level in speaking the language. You could see it wasn't quite there. Indeed, it's been a conversation for a bunch of people that it's like these guys, they understand the game. They're great players and they're great people, but it doesn't quite gel in certain situations. Now that they're on a team where they can just speak their own language, that's not going to be a problem. They can easily shoot to tier 1. One of the big shames, to be honest, I want to almost be selfish and I want to get Navi in Europe just so we can see them play a little bit more often, like just so I can get to cast them. I want to see their rise to glory. Because although, this wasn't necessarily a fantastic run for them, I really think that coming around to next year, again, as uncertain as things are right now with LCQ and champions and all that sort of stuff, I really think that if they keep on track with where they're at right now, they can easily be a contender of tier 1 international scene.
I mean, I'm blown away by how quickly they've just turned into a team that forces into that conversation. You know, of like potentially not even the best in their region, but in potentially in all of EMEA. So this leaves us with our 2 upper bracket semifinals. Now, you guys are sending 4 teams. So these games are qualification matches. We're going to send 2 teams to Berlin based on these results. Let's start with Acend versus Gambit. Gambit, look, I mean, they look pretty solid against Guild here. I don't think they're favorites in this series necessarily, especially with how Acend have been looking. But how does this sort of play out here? Because it definitely seems like, at least on Bind, Bone Cold on this Brimstone is doing a huge amount of heavy lifting.
It was a weird game because in the first half, like it was, you look at the scoreline and you go 6-6, fairly reasonable. Like neither team really winning it out or anything like that.
Pretty solid.
Gambit should have won that half every day of the week. Like in the first half, they were the better team. I think CNED had a really slow start to the game. And then Starzo pulled out one of the most bullshit clutches I've ever seen in my life. I think there was like 4 or 5 seconds left on the clock. He goes to plant, and as the player peeks, he insta headshots them, correcting his aim from planting as well. It was absolutely absurd. He aced the round before that as well, so it was the only reason they even got it closer to 6-6. And after that, Gambit just looked rough. Like there was not really much left for them. It was like the wind had just been taken from beneath them because one player just obliterated them. And then Cena gets on his defensive operator and everything becomes a lot more difficult.
And we knew that. We looked at the series, or we looked at the map as well, and we'd put the caveat out there that Acend were going to be solid when it came to the defensive side. We knew that they'd put up rounds. That's the sort of shame. I think we were robbed of a really close map by Starzo's big clutches, but we got flashy rounds instead, so that's fucking fine by me.
Moving on to Ascent here. This is actually a series where CNED doesn't take too long to get started. Actually, we'll do Icebox. That's fine. We'll skip the second one. Why not? CNED, well, it's Jet. It's Icebox here. We're actually seeing a lot of our EMEA teams play each other pretty closely on Icebox here. But again, it's another example here of Gambit just shitting the bed in the second half. They have like what is it, 7-5 half time, 7-6? And then, second half, lose the pistol and don't win another round. Just completely flat.
Yeah, I think getting just getting into the initial rounds, there were some nice setups that we saw. Gambit were even being very conscious of CNED's operator. I love the little thumbs up from CNED. He's so he's so wholesome, man. But like Gambit had a bunch of good setups. Like I remember the wall they put down. The second that CNED got an operator out, it was a wall that allowed them to push up on A, try to gain a little bit of space, and you could see the intention behind their play. And then they would just get absolutely ruined by Z coming around an arena, CNED to pop in a few op shots, and you're like, okay, well, this feels done. I think about round 3 in the second half, you were like, oh, this does not feel good for Gambit.
I think also that operator battle, like if you even just looking at the stats of Ascent, it was really close between CNED and Defo. Like it was a back and forth brawl. It was really exciting. We go into the next map, we're like, okay, we're gonna get the same again. It wasn't even close. Like it was not even close. CNED was entry fragging with an operator while like dashing into the A site. Like it was some of the stupidest stuff you'll ever see, and he just makes it work every single time. He has the supporting cast to do it, and it's the map where, as said, like for him on that attacking operator, he's so scary that I just don't think they really had a response to it, and was almost just like, can we clutch this out in the late rounds? And yeah, sure, it was a closer first half, but I just feel like once that momentum gets rolling for Ascend, they're the scariest team in all of EMEA, like the second they get going.
And also there was the constant narrative driven by some of the Gambit players even saying that Shados was the player that they would look to step it up on their side to really put some figures. Which is funny because for us, myself and Tom had 2 very different interpretations. You were going for Nats, right? And I was with Defo as the players that would, have that huge impact. And then they were saying, Shados, this guy, like he wins us games when he's on it. And he was actually versus the majority of the team. But CNED, let me just pull it up again. He was +10 in duels versus this guy across the series, which is, not too bad. And the ability for him to constantly dash out of positions meant that he was actually, I'm just looking, he was positive in duels versus every player except Nats and Redgar, who he was even with. So what do you do? Like this guy, he's stupid. He's stupidly good. It shouldn't be allowed.
I mean, listen, I don't think you guys should complain too much because, he's definitely going to be putting many of the hopes of Europe on his shoulders.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, they qualified with this game. Let's have a look at the other qualifying match. Supermassive Blaze up against G2 Esports. We're going in, boys. Pepper thine Angus's. What in the ever-living fuckery is this?
Yep. That's what I was asking too. In nicer ways on the day.
Uh-huh.
This
Sure,
was
yeah, sure.
This was a pretty shit cast, I'll be honest. It was not fun. It was as we said, it was like DJing a funeral. I don't know how we were supposed to approach it. This was nice by Mixwell though. I was just sneak by the Seekers, destroy the lockdown, bail out as well. I really enjoyed that bit.
What about that bit?
Well, that was nice, but look at the rest of the round. Isn't this the one where G2 just they get slapped out after that initial start? Rez comes in 5v2 and we were just like, oh no. It started so well. They destroyed the lockdown. They had a Viper's Pit. Everything was going their way. And then Izzy just dashed out onto the site and it was done.
Up until this point, G2 are looking like more consistent than we've ever seen them.
Yeah.
No reason not to have a lot of confidence in this team. Even what did they lose to Giants? Maybe either way, they come into this game.
Lost to Acend.
Acend. There you go.
That was who they lost to in the last one.
So, are Supermassive Blaze the real deal? Like an actual? I mean, shit, they qualified, right? But do you guys really think that they're going to sort of be that much of a threat? Is this a capitulation from G2? Is this them? Not living up to their potential as a team, because only 9 rounds over 2 maps is pretty shocking. I mean, moving on to the second map here, Acend isn't any better. Kellogg's has a better game, but that's really about it.
The thing for Supermassive Blaze, and it's something that I don't know if I want to give credit to in-game leader, coach, whatever. They are, even from a casting point of perspective, one of the hardest teams to read because I think they're very unorthodox. Like, they have players like Pora, for example, who are incredible lurkers, and sometimes they'll just 5-man walk into B. And then the next round, you'll see, like, G2 were coming up with ideas. They're like, okay, they're going really aggressive into B. Let's take mid. The next round, 5 men in mid, just waiting for them to push. Like, the reads that they were having on G2 were literally like they were in their team speak. Like, they just knew what they were doing almost the entirety of the game. And it just meant that the next round, you'd see like players start to try and be a little bit like Kellogg's, be a bit more cheeky and take some control. And Pora is then on the lurk this time. Like it just was, they were constantly adapting. And then you also have the fact that they do have the ability to just clutch out any round. So there were moments where you could see someone like Mixwell get a double opener and you'd be like, okay, this is where things are going to change. And then they win that round. And it doesn't even look like it's particularly difficult. And it was so peculiar to watch for a team that, well, it was basically the Turkish super team versus the EU super team. And in this case, EU got absolutely smashed.
Jeez. Can we have a look at the bracket once more? We'll take one more look at this. We've flashed it a bunch of times because there's still so much to be decided. First of all, Acend and the Supermassive Blaze, they'll play off seedings, of course. And, in this lower bracket now, you've still got 4 teams for 2 spots. You still got 6 teams here in this lower bracket.
Mm-hmm.
So who is it that doesn't get out of this lower bracket that it's an absolute fucking disaster? Like, are there any teams that you feel like are locked to make it through? You feel like Gambit have to get out of this?
Yeah, I think Gambit have to be going through. There's a possibility
that's
for
the thing
Kill to
I'm
beat
scared
G2.
of. Because I thought that last time.
Yeah.
Like, this is the thing. Like, so far, in terms of how I thought their game versus Acend would go, I thought that would happen, and then I thought they'd do the lower bracket run. But the problem is the team that, like, let's be real, the odds are they're going to face Team Liquid. Team Liquid are one of the teams that I would say, although they seem to start really slow, they build into tournaments to the point where they then, like, either finish top 4 at a Masters, or they, like, go through the Challengers 2 they had to go through the first time, and then they qualify for Masters in, like, the first place versus Fnatic. Like, this is the team that is so good at comebacks because I felt like they try a load of stuff. Like, they were trying KO at one point, it didn't work. They were trying all these different mixture of things, and then they go back to their tried and true, and they also have all these little counterplays and reads into squads. So I want to say that Gambit will win that game if it happens, but there is just this feeling, like, almost in the back of my throat that Team Liquid will come through and take it.
Feeling in the back of your throat. That's...
Yeah, it's an odd place for there to be a thing.
I'm choking on it.
That's an interesting turn of phrase. I don't know.
We want to talk about turn of phrases, Mitch. Some quick turn of phrases, maybe.
All right, let's keep that one brief. Let's.
Yeah.
Maybe Sturm this time, yeah.
Yeah. Mum's the word, gents. What about this lower side of the lower bracket? We got G2 versus the winner of GLD and VGIA. Who should be getting out of that one?
I think Guild G2 should be the match.
Yep.
And that might be the most 50-50 match in the entire tournament. Like they played a best of 5 in the lower bracket for challengers, and it went all 5, and it could have gone either way. Like I think Guild are always like the dark horse that never quite make. Like we talk about FBX as like the team that's like, oh, they should be there, but Guild almost just go under the radar a little bit, and they compete with pretty much every single team they play, but they never quite do it. So for that reason, I think G2 probably will win. I don't know if it's just something mentality-wise or just something in the back of their heads, like with the incredible overtime game they played versus Gambit. They could have won it, they didn't, and that just seems to be their story. I hope that changes, but I think we'll get a close game, but I think G2 will win.
Yeah, there's a sense that maybe the best is still to come in this, especially with this lower bracket, especially a lot of like the much beloved EU teams that now need to sort of duke it out, especially in a world where Acend and Supermassive have already made it through. So Europe hoping after Iceland, we're only being European teams. They're hoping to have some strong presence here still. Tom, thanks so much for joining us here on the show, man. It's great to finally have you
for
here.
Having me.
Absolutely,
I'll come back anytime if I can put. I was going to say put Mitch in his place, but Mitch, who is not also called Uber, in his place, then I'll happily come by anytime.
Yeah, see, I'm about that. I'm here for it. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to go to a quick break. When we come back, we're going to dive deep into North America because that region's already been resolved. Essentially, your delegates for Berlin have been decided. So we're going to catch up with Ender after the break and see how that region shaked out. Stick around for more Valoranting on the other side of the break. Welcome back, everybody, to Valoranting, professional ranting show. Mitch has just clocked the fuck out. My guy is just punched.
I've done my time.
Lighters there. Obviously, Mitch is still going to be here because we need the European heckling now as we go over this next bracket. Vans, obviously,
he's here for that.
You've been a busy man. You've just got off the plane because you've been in Philly. You've been covering these matches on the analyst desk in the studio. Obviously, yourself, Valley was on the desk, and we saw Bok there with you.
Yeah.
Mate, for great watching. Congratulations to you guys on the show. And someone else who was a part of the proceedings for VCT NA, I'm going to bring onto the show for the first time. I want to take this opportunity to welcome Ender, previously of LEC fame, now getting his hands dirty in some Valorant here in NA. Mate, thank you so much for coming on the show and joining us.
Yo, I'm excited to talk a little bit of Valorant here. You know, I've only gotten to do a couple of days of VCT, so any chance to talk about Valorant, I absolutely love to get. And I can heckle on NA too, Mitch. You know, I came over from Europe. I was a Fnatic #1 fan for a long time.
You can't anymore, Ender. You can't anymore. Now that you're casting NA. First off,
enemy lines, brother. I respect
exactly.
And
second of all, would you like to establish this, Ender? You're shilling for NA now. Is that the deal?
Look, I shill for both sides. I'll be honest.
Okay.
You know?
Oh, he's like me, good, honest Valorant.
Yeah, honest or just shilling for where it suits me. Yeah.
Now, there's got to be something to the fact that no one is fully shilling NA because even Vans, who's died in the paint NA fan, is sort of. It takes a lot to stoke the angry NA fan out in Vans. You've really got to come at him. Yinsu is the only one that's been able to do it so far. Yeah. Well, I'm hoping to see you break through. Because I saw, Vans just fucking popped off before Iceland when the wager started. So hopefully we can get him to that point. We have to push him. We really have to break his mental.
We'll see in the next few weeks.
Yeah, okay, for sure. Yeah, and like you said, mate, you've only a couple of VCTs under your belt so far, but you hit the ground running, of course, thrown straight into what turns out to be a pretty deep region, right? NA has just been churning out incredible talent. I mean, some might disagree, but that's fine. Here's our bracket. So first of all, NA only sending 3 teams, so one less slot there to work with, which means the stakes are even higher. And you've got to say it is a pretty deep region here. First of all, coming into it, Ender, did you have 3 teams that you thought were like locked to advance? Like, what was your kind of prediction coming into it?
Look, I'm going to be honest here because I was casting with Simo one day when he's like, "So what are the teams you think are going to make it through?" I'm like, "Okay, Sentinels 100%." Then I was really hype on Envy. And then I also said 100 Thieves. So I'm just a genius. Okay. I also feel like those were kind of like the freest, the freest ones. Yeah, like those are the safe ones for sure. Because I think some people were maybe thinking like a TSM. They were on like the big copium that didn't pan out because on Envy is just too cracked.
Yep, that's me.
I'm the edgy XSet shill always. I'm fucking repping the set for always.
I like that though.
The team is nice. It's fucking. I mean, that Rise game was really cool. So let's start from the start then. Sentinels versus Rise here, right? David versus Goliath stuff. Rise really impressed us, I think, in the lead up to this, right? This team showed they were already cracked and they were, going toe to toe with teams like Faze and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we kick things off and we've seen plenty of Sentinels on Breeze, and holy moly, not the closest to fair.
This is like a snooze fest for me, man. Like honestly, like we were starting this day, I was like, nothing against Ender and Seamble, but fuck did I wish I had TSM and fucking Envy on the A stream so I could like watch that and do some analysis for that shit. But so then you watch this first map, it's like, okay, you know what? Rise could maybe upset. Rise could maybe be a dark horse. Sentinels, is it their moment where they're going to get knocked down early in a bracket again like they did in the past? You look at Breeze, it was 10-2 in the fucking half. No, it wasn't. I mean, the way that they set up on their defense, too, was very static for Sentinels. They barely changed any of their strats at all or positioning on the defender side, and they still smacked Rise 10-2. And I think it's on Rise's fault to leave that in that rotation. I think it was their permaban before heading into the NA regionals. So they thought they had something cooked up to be able to fight against Sentinels, but it was definitely underwhelming.
They're banning Icebox now. Is that like just a map they don't want to play, or
that's another map they're shit at. Honestly, like I'll still get some respect for Rise though. But what I was saying before, but when Rise go into their matches, is that anything that they have to play a Viper and they take Superman away from Astra, they're starting to like struggle a little bit more. You're losing a little bit of consistency on getting like a good controller and taking it away from how good Superman is with that agent. So you have to like try to mix and match what the rest of the composition is going to look like, for example, on Icebox, what it's going to look like on Breeze. And I think they're still theory crafting, right? Which is why also I'm saying, like, when you're playing against Rise, if you're leaving Split in there or you're leaving Ascent in there, there's a good chance that you might lose that map. Rise are pretty good to guarantee a victory on those two maps, and then Ascent and Blind would be like a toss-up, and then the other two would usually be a loss on Icebox and on Breeze.
So let's talk about Ascent then. I know about, like some of these more aggressive teams picking Split. Like, people have been doing it since like that original Renegades roster with like Bergie and all that on there.
Yeah.
What is it about Rise Nation here on Ascent? Because I'm a little surprised to see Sentinels have such a quiet map against them here.
Yeah. I think it's sick coming out first with a KO. I think there was this kind of like they want to test things out for Sentinels too. I think you remember when we were casting Uber and we were looking at Sentinels, like, well, if Icebox is in there and Ascent is in there, they may lose. And then suddenly they're really, really good on Ascent again, and then they're back on being like on an iffy par form on this map. To bring out Sick on a KO, I don't know if it was something new that they wanted to try or just a troll map because they won 13-2 on the first map, and then the claws are coming out. Did
it work?
It did not work. They got fucking owned. I didn't see too much coming out of this KO from Sentinels on this map, but I do have to definitely give credit on Rise on how they just continue to work like as this bio ball of trades and how fast they are on these retakes on defense to be able to get these rounds.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I was just shocked because I was casting NVTSM while it was going on, so I didn't actually get to watch the games. But I got like a ping in my ear, and they're like, "Update the fans on how the Rise Sentinel series is going." I'm like, what do you mean? What do I have to update them on? Like, it's obviously just gonna be over. No, and so I was like very shocked to get that news in my ear there. Even more shocked to see like the composition and stuff coming out from Sentinels. But yeah, I mean, I can't really say much more on that series because I had the better one.
We'll get to that one in just a second. I mean, I can see why you're saying that. It's not just bias. I mean, Blind was not very close. It felt like Ten's got to do a lot of what he wanted on Reyna. Showers control here just seemed to be pretty hard for Rise to contest, especially when they go on the attack in that second half here. But I mean, the real story is Sentinel's offense, fans.
Yeah, Sentinel's offense continues to be very strong. I think even on looking at how Rise can maybe set up on the attack is not that great either, because Shank steps away from like a Jet and plays a little bit more Sky. Want to have a little bit more utility for the team where they don't have a Jet permanently in a roster, and it doesn't work out when you're playing against Sentinels that continues to look pretty good on this map. Tens kind of did his own thing, as you mentioned here, Uber, and I think it's, they have a choice now for Sentinels. They have different comps they could work with. I was talking about that with Veli too, where like they have some maps where they could pull out, some matchups where they could have Tens pull out a Euro if they want to and still do good with it. And now that you have a little bit more of these like we want to qualify, want to guarantee the wins. You put 10s on this Reyna. You still have some great B side and showers control from when Dapper wants to play that Viper. They still seem to be very unbeatable, where they don't need to change that much in the rest of their composition outside of that duelist, and nobody could crack their defense yet, or their attack. Sorry.
Yeah, of course. So moving on, the first real test I think for Ye on this Envy squad, right, is this matchup against TSM. And obviously, you know, you're casting this one here. How are you setting expectations for viewers going into this match? What are you expecting? Are those expectations met? Are they subverted? How does this go for you?
Honestly, the expectations were met, maybe even a little surpassed, you know, depending on what your sort of opinion on Ye was coming into this, because like he'd actually just played against TSM a couple of weeks before, and like they had that in one of the insane Icebox matches that went 20 to 18 rounds. Ye was just dropping like 30, 40 kills, you know, as they got in deeper. So like we knew that Ye was going to be super, super strong on this team. And for Envy, the biggest change up for them was bringing in an aggressive opper, an aggressive jet player with Ye, because Mame was a little bit more passive, you know, holding his angles, as opposed to Ye, who's actually looking to take those early fights early on in rounds. And against TSM, that's super important, because Wardell's going to be doing the exact same thing on the opposite side with his jet. And on this Haven map, things started off a little bit slower for Envy, I feel like, especially when they got onto the attacking side of things, like when they were actually like trying to take control over a short or even through garage in particular. They just like were getting jumped out of garage and shot in the back. And it wasn't until a little bit later on in the attacking side of things, I feel like, that they sort of figured out how they were supposed to, you know, execute on their defaults. And they had some really nice setups with Sova arrows into ults to allow them to buy space, a lot of these things. But at the end of the day, it was so much about Ye coming into this team and being willing to take early fights and rounds that let them gain space on them.
Yeah, what I really like too throughout the whole series, but even focusing on Haven as well, is like the battle of the Wardell versus Ye, right? Was that going to happen? Was it going to be like TSM's plan is to find
Was that
Ye?
going to be the centerpiece?
Exactly. It seems like it wasn't really that case though. Like as Ender was saying, like Ye was doing a good job, like getting first bloods, but it wasn't against Wardell. He was getting good moments of like lurk. I'm talking about Ascend at this point too. Sorry, but he's really good at finding his openings and getting first bloods. But what Wardell would do is get into the second or third kill to make like an even 2v2 or 2v3 later on in the rounds for TSM or for Envy. That's how you make these matches really close in the end. So they kind of like all did their jobs, not fighting against each other as the jet ops, but at least making and opening the rounds to allow these takes to happen. And unfortunately, it's just Envy that's too good. I think Ye dropped like 20 kills every fucking map in this series.
I mean, he exceeded my expectations just for how quickly he would sort of fit into this roster. If you want to look at the head-to-head, he's like -4 against Wardell on both of these first two maps. You know what I mean? Like he's not really winning out there. But this Breeze map is just, I mean, what the fuck's going on here? Like neither of these teams is really able to establish holds. Like both teams have a good idea of how to really get a lot of use here out of the Viper play. They're getting here onto this B side, especially with this, the Viper. We can sort of see here how it goes sort of from north to south and covers the left-hand side of the site. Neither team's really able to defend very effectively against this. Is this how you expect this game to go? Like, are you looking at a team being like, what the fuck can't you guys, put together a hold? Or is this just what we should expect from Breeze between top teams in the future?
Honestly, I think Breeze is a bit of a mess of a map in the sense that like lurks are so insane. Like there's so many different places you can get lurks going, like through halls, you can go late through elbow. Like the attacking team has so many options in how they want to like slowly get in from behind onto the site that it becomes really hard to sort of take control over space. And that's why things like the Viper are absolutely necessary. I think that Cypher is absolutely insane on this map. The amount of value you get out of your camera and your tripwires as well. Even like, I think it's much more powerful than the Killjoy in particular. But it's like all of these things that culminate in it just being so hard to actually hold on to sites that you'll often see jet players like aggressively trying to take fights in cave to try and get one pick. You have to like take players off the map before the round even starts in order to feel safe about the actual space on the map that you do control.
Yeah, I think in the end on a map like Breeze, it also really comes down to like who you're playing against, what comp you're playing against, because as Ender is saying, like a Cypher could be very good as Haze is using and Def is using Cypher for XSet and for TSM. But then, for example, for Sentinels, Dapper is going to play a Killjoy and place a turret in the back of A tube that takes away the lurking opportunities early into the round, right? But if you're going to play something like Gen G, they're going to go double controller, where GMD is going to smoke down towards the A tube and lurk that, and so they can have better entries and splits into the A site hits. So there's a lot of different varieties of these strats right now, where sometimes it works better for others on defense or on attack, but I think there's no winning combination in that yet. And that's why I'm actually really excited for Berlin, because I think this is going to be like an off pick for a lot of teams to like test things out.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, we know that Sentinels likes to go there for starters.
Yep.
And I think a lot of our results in EMEA were just like really competitive, but, you know, maybe because teams didn't really have that one under their belt. Let's move on to Acend here. First of all, very different compositions, right? TSM have bang on Reyna. They have the Reyna Sage with the Omen setup here, whereas Envy have the Jet and the Raze, as well as the Astra. So very different looks from these two.
Yeah, exactly. And it's sort of what we expect from TSM. Like, Wardell will almost always go to the Sage on this map. He really likes holding like the really tiny pixel angles, either with a rifle or with an operator, and sort of like baiting you to walk in and getting free shots off. But it just didn't really come together for TSM. I would say like TSM in general feel like a team that's super patient, especially when they're playing on the defensive side. Like, they're not going to get, faked out when you put a couple of players towards A and immediately rotate off and allow themselves to get picked off like that. But Envy seemed super decisive in their attacks as well. So the patience for TSM wasn't really rewarded, because it wasn't like there was this sleight of hand or anything by Envy. They realized, we want to go to this site, we're going to attack it, and we're going to be better than you more often than not when we do.
Yeah, exactly. I think this is where it was unfortunately the demise of TSM too, because as we saw that highlight 4K op shot or op clip that he got towards A main with that pixel wall, it was kind of the tell of how the play style of how he's playing with the operator on this map. Because it would happen that I think they would boost up on Catwalk to look down towards B Link, and then have Bang sort of like lurk down as he's playing that Reyna, and they're trying to double take control of B Link. If nothing happens, Wardell falls back, and then they're just going to play like an off and go with the op, playing towards Garden. Or if they're starting to get a little bit more pressure, then you see a wall come up here towards Tree side for Wardell, and he's just going to dance around that wall. Or he's going to wall A main, he's going to play around that wall. What am I getting at? He's just going to wall. When you see a wall, Wardell's going to be close there. There's none of that, like, hey, let's play mind games and try to wall one spot and play to the other end and rotate over the other end where opponents could walk into his op, So it kind of became predictable in that point too, unfortunately, against Envy, where I usually give a lot of credit for TSM on this map, but Envy was just a lot more prepared in the game plan with what Mike brought to the table with FNS.
A decently competitive series here. I mean, only one of these teams is going to advance. TSM, we're probably feeling like they can do a bit of work in the lower bracket anyway. This next match was a little less close. So match number 3 features XSet going up against Luminosity. Like, XSet, we know are, masters of running the lower bracket, but, the longer they can stay out of it, the better here. A new look to this team, right, with Def, BCJ, Zekin on this roster. Luminosity, really impressed us, I think, a couple of times, especially Dazzle, and Dre stepped up a ton in the qualifiers here, but we don't really get to see much of anything from LG across this series. But let's start with Haven here. XSet win the pistol, and LG are very quiet on their defense.
Yeah,
I'll let you surrender.
Yeah. Because this is the other series I got to cast, so I've got all the points in the world here. Because I think that for Luminosity, like, the one thing that disappointed me a little bit is I just feel like your boy Dre did not, like, he was not loose, he was not warm coming into this Haven map. Like, he was really struggling, especially on the first half. Like, playing the Jet, and you'd see like a lot of those first fights that he's taking, he's missing a shot, having to dash away, not getting those initial picks that you'd maybe like to expect out of them. And XSet are not a team that sort of let you breathe. If you make a mistake on those initial picks, like, they're going to be running double initiators, they're going to be flying into the sites. Like, they do not really allow you to think. And I think it was really fun in particular to watch XSet on both these maps, frankly, because they just had a huge variety of different tactics and strategies they were going to be able to throw your way. And me and Simo actually got to interview Def after the series, because we're just like, how do these guys do this? Like, every round it was a different look, like completely different. And we're like, so do you like practice this? Like, how deep is your playbook? And they're like, no, we actually just sort of figured out round around. We were like, I can do this. Let's try it, and it was just like this endless loop of just trial and error. And there wasn't a lot of error versus Luminosity.
Yeah. I feel that Haven was kind of weird for me because this was a tournament where Moose came back into the lineup, right? So before they had Ben coming in as well, so then Moose comes back, but not only does he come back, he doesn't play the Sova. So Dazzle, when he comes back or comes into the roster, starts IGLing for the team, is actually doing a very good job IGLing for our team as Sova, for example, though. So I kind of like that he stayed on to that. But then you put Moose onto like a Sentinel, and you put a Proto on Sky, where, as Ender says, double initiator, it comes at you fast, and it seems to be some sort of like a norm as like a default comp to have a Sova and a Sky now on a map like Haven, or on a lot of maps actually these days with the new meta from Sky. But to give it to a Proto instead of putting him like in what we know him as like the Sentinel role, and you're trying to pop for your teammates to come in as a Sky, like I know he could play it, but at the same time, I feel that they would have been able to do a lot more if they were more comfortable in those roles to keep your Proto on Killjoy. Worst comes to worst, I feel that if you actually gave Moose Sova and then you put Dazzle on Sky, it would have maybe helped them a little bit more in terms of that synergy.
Yeah, because that was another big talking point for us during the cast, and it felt like, I mean, Moose was like fine on the Killjoy, like he wasn't a problem by himself or anything like that. I think he had like a couple of nice clutch moments as well on that Haven map. Where I felt like it was a much bigger hindrance was on Split, because like from watching Luminosity in the past, a Proto's like setups with his Cypher, on A site, the one ways, the cameras, there's like all these stuff, like it has been so nasty in the past, and I was honestly shocked to see him going over and having to play the Sage. Like, it's just a completely different look. You're using your wall, dropping it down. There wasn't that same sort of level of like trickery that you can have on the Cypher, and where you can get a lot of these cheap kills by having a really nice setup. And I think that XSet were really able to punish that lack of a Cypher on that map.
Zekin popped off actually on Split too, right? So for one end, it's like a bad day for LG with how they wanted to work out that synergy with less time of practice. But on the other end, you're still going to have to play against XSet, which is like the runner-up to maybe even upset and beat the Dark Horse to be able to qualify for Berlin as well. So it was a tough matchup. Zekin just popped off. I even think that Zekin went 7-0 or something like that against a Proto in terms of duels from like playing like something differently than a Cypher. So he was definitely, and I wouldn't say like not in his element for a Proto, but XSet were definitely able to take advantage of the setup that LG had.
XSet had some sick plays too. Like, I just have to like throw out that they just did on defense, they just did a 4-man mid rush and just won a round off. Like, they were just doing crazy things, and then they did that in like the 3rd or 4th round, if my memory serves me right, on defense. So then for the rest of the half, if you're Luminosity, you're like, can they do it this round?
Your conditions.
Oh, it's so brutal.
And that was the thing too, because not only that, you to add more variation to their defense, they would have like 4 players on A and then 1 player on B, vice versa, just because they could count on Def playing the Astra just to try to delay enough, and then also leverage their utility correctly in terms of like, okay, well, we could actually stack and play an open side on B side because we have, for example, Seekers for a retake, Showstopper for a retake. So they controlled the map or the pacing of the whole series pretty well.
Let's move on here to a pretty hotly anticipated game, because I think a lot of people are expecting to see 100 Thieves cruise through. Like, I think Arsenal was very hotly hyped coming out of the qualifiers here, out of the sort of the challenges stages. And Faze, we talked to Trippy, right? We kind of, we tried to pick his brain a little bit. They've recently had to, get Baby J working in this roster. I mean, casters just have to fucking deal with it now, casting this team with Baby Bay and Baby J. That's just mental.
And then we had to, sorry, I was gonna say, and then we had to cast Bang and Bang when it was LG versus TSM. It was pretty dope. Pretty dope.
I mean, that's ridiculous. Yeah, Barn. Well, I think it's Barn actually. If he's an anime fan,
and Bang,
it's probably because he's character from 7 Deadly Sins. I think.
It gets worse, because I've actually had to cast Shadow versus Shadow in League of Legends, and one of them is just the O is a 0. What do? It's just not possible.
Nothing. You just
gotta love those.
Fucking cough it.
Gotta love those.
Right. Let's talk about this FaZe Clan team, because they don't look that well conditioned here. I mean, Zachary's moved to Smoker, and I actually thought that I don't know. I'm always impressed by him. But
Yeah.
I think in this series they get kind of rolled over here. We'll talk about Haven first. The first half definitely pretty competitive, right? 7-6 at the halftime. But as you can see again in the second half, FaZe Clan just goes off the boil.
Yeah.
I'll try and put it nicely.
Yeah, I'm always actually a big fan of Zachary, like 100% on controller right now, because, for example, when FaZe were having a little bit better results on Icebox, let's say during their Masters 2 run, Zachary was playing an Omen on that map, so then you're starting to realize that, okay, well, he wants to play a little bit less Sentinels, he's going to be able to play a bit of Breach or a little bit of Astra or some Omen from map to map, and still do a very good job to like activate the team. Now you have Baby J that comes into a role, very, very good actually as a Sentinel, and even that Breach player as a secondary now as well, really giving the Zachary the 100% responsibility of playing controller. But what happened in this map here was once you got into that second half and you had FaZe playing the attacker side, they just all ran into like Asuna blindly. Like, well, not necessarily blindly. They weren't using any fucking flashes to actually try to push Asuna away from his positions. So there was a lot of like these impact kills that Asuna was able to get by, like, for example, pushing down sewers and getting the AWP up towards the A choke, and then he would pick one off, and then he'd fall back into a different angle, picks another one off, and I think that kind of like fell apart on how FaZe were trying to execute their attacker side, and it just wasn't enough. It wasn't really on Steel's KO. It was just on like FaZe not having a right game plan against 100 Thieves.
Where do you think this team goes from here? I think FaZe, really struggled to break into that top bracket of teams in NA for a little while now, and they've really not been able to, like, from the way it seems, they've not been able to establish protocols that allow them to go toe to toe to these teams that are, I mean, we're playing Yoru on Breeze, for Christ's sake, which is not the most uncommon, to be fair, but Nitro just fucking slapped him there.
Yeah.
What do you think this team needs, or is lacking presently against these top, either of you can maybe weigh in on this, because a lot of viewers are probably wondering, like, what it is that FaZe are just not getting.
An IGL. They need an IGL at this point, because even when we talked about it with Trippy last week or 2 weeks ago, he was saying, look, we have different players calling on different maps, and it kind of gets a little bit tricky, right? When you're trying to figure out like a little bit more synergy from these teams, is like, okay, well, is it going to be like that who was it before? It was like, we don't really have an IGL and we just talk about it and just try to make things work.
Was it different IGLs for different maps?
Yeah, that's what Trippy was saying before. So then that didn't work out at all, or it doesn't seem to work out at all for FaZe. And you see, like, already, like, not necessarily a downward spiral, but there's definitely been like a dip in their performances when Marv left that team and went over to play for Envy, right? So they kind of need that identity. They need a little bit more. I know Trippy works very hard for this team to be able to build the strats that they need to do, but I think they need somebody that's really going to be focused IGL and really rein this team in. And if everybody's really happy about the performances of the 4 players of FaZe's side coming from Overwatch, nothing against Baby J, but maybe he's going to have to pick up that responsibility so that they could actually get something moving. If not, you have to find an IGL.
For me, FaZe is a little bit an odd one, because I feel like I think expectations for them are just a little bit off, because they were so overhyped, in my opinion, like right off the bat. And like when you are, Baby Bay, and you're going crazy on the Jet, and you're playing early on in tournaments, you're farming a lot of weaker teams and you're absolutely styling on them. So like all the highlight reels come out, it looks fantastic, but I don't know. I just feel like this team, in my eyes, still has a long way to go before they're like an actual rival at the top here for a lot of the best teams in North America. And I think Vansili, like that's a great point there, like figuring out like the protocols, IGL, like all this stuff. It feels a little bit lacking, and the highlight reels do not match the performance of a team. And I think that over time we are seeing this evidence sort of come to light.
The highlight reels, 360 no scope Doritos do not win you championships.
And I think that it might have something to do with like Baby Bay's brand as well. It's a very hyped team. It's very hyped. They play hype. They live hype. You know what I mean?
Yep.
All right, so our lower bracket matches, some of them have important corollaries. We'll try and breeze through them a little bit because we're running short on time here. But let us preside over the funeral of Team Solo Mid, because they fall down to the lower bracket and Rise fucking devours them. It's a close first map, and that Rise are going to want to try and pick split and go here. And TSM actually managed to outlast them on quite a close one.
Yeah. It was a lot of Leviathan's work and Wardell's work that really helped TSM to overcome here this back and forth that we had between Rise and TSM. But I think as we go back and forth and we talk about the series, I feel that it's okay for us to like keep this running and just say like, what the fuck does TSM need to do at this point, right? Like, they've tried really everything so far. They've blown up the roster. They've changed some roles. They've brought some new players in. They brought talent in. They got a full-time, basically, Sova that could play into the roster too. Their communication was better. They had a great series versus Envy, and suddenly they shit the bed right there against Rise. And that kill is actually pretty funny. Apparently, Poise tweeted out a little bit later that he thought it was still a 2 versus 1. That's why he drops into that Viper's pit by himself like that. So sometimes my Vietnamese homies were kind of brain dead too, but at least they still got the series. At least they still got the series.
Shit, you can only say that if you're fucking Vietnamese. All right. Breeze, the third map in this series here. Shanks seems like the kind of player that just when he feels himself, it's over. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Full of a lot of confidence, a lot of bluff and bluster. Here, he's plus 12, and it's a great start for Rise, right? Winning the pistol, you get 7 rounds on the defensive side, which is we were just talking about all these teams that can't fucking defend this map. So what is TSM doing wrong on attack? Why is this such a barren attacking half for them?
Well, that's what you were saying too. It's like not only what Shanks is able to do as that jet because he was able to open up a lot on such an open map, opping less, rifling more as well with the Vandal, but it's also Neptune. Neptune's another one where he wasn't really like a superstar coming in from Counter-Strike into this game. He was playing with a guided light with all those guys trying to find a team and get picked up until he joined Immortals? Was it Immortals that he joined or whatever? He joined one of the top teams and then ends up in this lineup here. And now he's starting to like branch out a little bit more than just playing a Raze, and he's playing a Sky, and it's actually helping out the team quite well in terms of like overall synergy. And I think where they actually overpowered TSM2 was, like I said, this was their off pick because they were comfortable to play this against Sentinels. They still lost to Sentinels to that, but then what happened? They copied exactly what Sentinels did. The composition that they lost against, they used that against TSM, and that's how they won too. I just remembered that's what happened.
I love it. I also think like one other really important thing about Breeze, because like I also thought the TSM series against Envy was really strong, so I don't know if they necessarily need to blow everything up after losing to Rise, but I think Breeze, more so than any other map, is a map where you absolutely have to study your opponents, and you're more rewarded for like game sense, knowing your opponents, and patience on that map than any other map because of the value you can get out of lurking and whatnot. And I felt like TSM had a much better read playing against Envy on this map than they did playing against Rise. And I wonder if there's some sort of element in that where the series they're playing first, they know they're going to be playing is against Envy, right? So coming into the week, like that's the time you're putting in is sort of studying that team. And then when you have to play another series, right after that, it becomes a little bit more challenging to know exactly what Rise is going to be bringing to the table, knowing when you can go for the pushes, what the tendencies of your opponents are, and all this sort of stuff.
One thing I really liked about Rise actually was on their attack side, I think that they make use of Sky in a way that, fuck, this is painful to say. The way that most teams don't. Oh, just gave an NA team a compliment.
The first thing you say is a compliment. I love it.
Yeah,
I know. It's only downhill from here. Do not worry. But they ended up using Neptune in so he is so aggressive and so successful when he's using those flashes that they end up in the late stage starting to fake it out a little bit. You saw what Shanks did there. He throws down a cloudburst in the clip that we saw in towards the double doors, and the instant thought that goes through the head of Subrosa is, this motherfucker's about to flash through this smoke again and kill me. Of course, their Sky was nowhere nearby, so that wasn't the case. He turns his back, ready to play anti-flash, turn around and take the kill, and then Shanks is coming through the smoke, taking him down. That level of thought to understand that, okay, we're using our Sky a lot. We're finding a lot of success with it. So these players now, when they see those cloudbursts go down, when they see smokes, there's going to be that little thought in their head that, shit, they could be about to flash through it. And they use the counterplay of their opponents to their own advantage, which is, by NA standards, fucking genius.
Thanks for that, Mitch.
That was nice.
All right, so
I just want to let that silence go because that was such a good compliment that, you know what? You just make him regret for saying
take
it.
those.
I mean, this right. Look, I think that this Rise team was really impressive. I think that the region's deep enough that like it might take a little bit more than that, and it ultimately does. But Faze dropped to the lower bracket here. They take on Luminosity, who looked fucking lackluster in their game against XSet. They really didn't look like much there. Faze also needed a pick me up after their series against 100 Thieves here.
Mm-hmm.
This goes to 3. We'll jump in on Split here, which this is LG's pick. They keep picking Split, right?
Yep.
They fucking lose it again.
Yep. Yeah, there's like I said, I feel that this is too new right now for LG with what they're trying to do with Moose coming back, like and like at least they try to put him back onto a Cypher and try to work that. Dazzle's gonna go into a smoke, but Faze was just way too aggressive and it just paid off. I mean, I didn't have high expectations for LG, but I did have expectations that if they were able to upset somebody and knock somebody out without qualifying, it would have been against Faze. But I was definitely wrong on that one. Faze was ready and coming out to play.
What do you make of so the composition is no Sentinels on bind. They're going with the breach here. Do you feel like they, like Faze have always tried to incorporate breach to a decent degree? A lot of NA teams sort of don't. How does Baby J look? Are they looking in sync? You see, obviously they're valuing sort of playing and controlling. I mean, this is an incredible moment.
Yeah, that was sick.
Faze have always valued showers pretty highly. A lot of those top teams do.
Mm-hmm.
And the defensive breach I thought was really effective at just making that part of the map really dangerous.
Yep, and like I said, it's not the first time that you see Faze not play a Sentinel on this map before too, right? When they played, like I think it was New Turn or Vision Strikers, I think it was New Turn that was also not playing a Sentinel on this map and having like a controller with the breach and have a pretty good defense no matter what. You just had to cycle your breach around a lot, and it wasn't around the flashes and dashes, but it was also trying to incorporate a little bit more raise into that. And you saw it, like the gravity well to the fault line to the peak. Then you have fault lines to sands with paint shells. Like it looked pretty good. It looked pretty good against LG, but I don't know if it's going to be good enough versus the likes of like the Sentinels or the Envies of the world.
We were critical of Faze's utility usage against 100 Thieves, especially on Haven. It didn't seem like it was there. Maybe because they were just trying to save it for after plant, but they're losing so many of these early fights and walking on a site with like, -3 players.
Yeah.
Here, it looks like they're getting a lot of value out of it, but defensive, this fucking team blows my mind. Now they seem like they're more defensively oriented, or they're able to get a lot more value out of their utility. Biden's been around for so long, and a lot of teams really want to play heavily towards those showers, but their ability to do that in this series I found so striking, especially with Astra as well. They had it absolutely on lock, and I'm thinking, fucking, okay, here's Faze. So here's the Faze clan we're looking for. They're alive in the lower bracket. They advance. On the other side of this lower bracket, we have XSet taking on Rise, which is, I could not pick a winner here. Rise, I'm like, okay, this team kind of fucking legit, kind of just turning up here. I'm always sort of simping for XSet to a sort of degree here. First map, Rise win that one. So I mean, look, it's Haven. So I'm definitely looking towards Split and thinking the series could be over here. Rise love to play this map. It's kind of one of their go-tos here. They really pushed TSM on it. It looked very close. XSet, credit to them, show some depth. No pun intended. They really outlast. Def drops 30 on this map though, crucially, and
8 fucking first kills. He, like when Def doesn't want to lose, he doesn't want to lose.
Astra.
Yeah.
What is he doing? What is he doing here as Astra? Like, why is he playing so far forward? Like, because explain this to me. It really feels like you don't want to be involved in early engagements because you still want to be able to use that utility late in the round. So what is happening that is allowing Def to be involved and win so many of these early fights?
I think this just comes down to like experience, right? And just the play style that Death could bring into the table for a team. Like at this point, it doesn't really matter about the agent that you play. This is just raw skill. Because when he was IGLing for complexity back then in Counter-Strike, where Ye and Android was still playing with him too in that roster. Like he was IGLing for complexity CSGO, but also still playing the lurk play, clutch play at the same time. So when it comes down to it and he wants to actually just try to do some individual skills, he could do it. And I do commend Rise on having like a good map or 2 good maps, right? But you're also playing XSet, who's also very good on Split, as Ender and I talked about before. The variations, the amount of different defender setups that they have for XSet on Split,
they definitely also have that map practice. And maybe it's not a composition that's practiced enough by Rise to understand how they could have countered how XSet played it.
Yeah, I think it's important to say too, like to the conversation of like Deft, like playing like aggressively, like taking fights and whatnot. Back on Split, like they were only playing one duelist, right? Like, so like you needed someone else to be able to step up, especially how XSet like to play these more aggressive defenses in certain situations. So anyone else on the team, like you could make the argument, yeah, you don't want to lose Astra utility. You also don't want to lose, I don't know, Killjoy or Viper utility, Sky utility, any of these sorts of things. So I think there's some level of awareness too, being like, okay, no, I'm going to be the guy to do it. And like the level of confidence to come out there and drop 30 on Astra is just insane. And I don't think you can lose a map 3 after you do that to a team.
I mean, I was just blown away because not only are you winning the early fights, but you have a player advantage plus all that utility that has been set in advance can be used for, you know, whatever you want, post plants or even just to burn more clock. So it seems that much nastier when you have a controller that is you know, winning so many of these early fights. It's just like an extra player. Can I be honest with you guys? I was actually really impressed with Faze. They lost to Envy in this next game. This is this next lower bracket match. Envy are doing Envy things. They eventually dropped down, but I thought honestly that Faze really gave it to him. Right? They actually won the first match. They won Haven, and that was with Ye still doing Ye things. He was like +9 in first kill to first death. So they actually fucking handled that. Faze have a really quiet attacking half on bind though. They're really getting sort of choked out here, and Victor seems to be a real problem for them.
Yeah, not only Victor, I still think like throughout this whole series, Crashies was the one that was probably the biggest nuisance to Faze overall. I think there was this series, right? Yeah, on Acend. Like, I don't know how many rounds he fucking clutched, but he came out to fucking play. And overall, when you're looking at the series, even at the end of the series, Ye tweeted out, was like, yo, I popped like 18 Advils, and I wasn't feeling great. So I'm glad that my teammates stepped up. And as you mentioned here, Uber, there was a bit of Victor, but there was a lot of Crashies. There was even like, I think a 2 versus 4 that was won by Marv and FNS. Like every single one of them really stepped up their plate and really wanted to make sure that they were able to cross this line and finally qualify for Berlin. So it's just unfortunate for Faze that they got the short end of the stick, because they had a pretty good start, as you mentioned, on Haven. Like they were winning 5-0, and then suddenly they lost a half 7-5 after a timeout, and then Envy just like strung all these rounds together and won that first half. But yeah, I mean, we do criticize Faze for being a little bit unorthodox in their playstyle, but they were somewhat close. You somewhat, once again, get to the point where, okay, well, there is what we like to call potential, but I feel that the IGL is definitely going to help them a little bit more.
Can I be honest? I think Faze on Ascent is pretty questionable. If they don't win Pistol on Ascent, like I'm just expecting them to get fucking shit on. I think it was against Envy, and I think also it was right. They didn't get to play it against 100 Thieves. It was their first map in the lower bracket. It was Luminosity. They got 8 rounds on against them as well. That map just doesn't seem to really facilitate some of their individuals to sort of pop off. It doesn't really allow like Corey necessarily or Baby Bay to sort of to go wild. I don't know what it is, and if it's anything that anyone has picked up, but it's an eye test thing as well. But their Ascent just doesn't look to be. I like their Ascent with Zachary on. When Zachary was playing Sentinel, their Ascent looked really good.
Yeah.
Either way, that Cypher, he locked down a site, especially because like, you know, Jets couldn't break tripwires and stuff like that. He seemed to really be a rock for them on that map. But since that maybe switch, I just haven't seen them to be nearly as consistent on Ascent.
Yeah, I still enjoy Faze on Ascent too, though. I think this comp is fine. I think it's like a simple thing of, I did like seeing Zachary playing, like, for example, Omen on Icebox. Maybe Astra may not be as comfortable as playing Omen, but you kind of have to, because sometimes you have to adapt, or not sometimes, every time you have to adapt to the meta. And maybe he doesn't adapt to the Astra play as well. But what I do like from FaZe Clan on this map is how Baby J continues to be able to play some good lurk plays for this team. And when they actually execute into the B sites, it's not like, hey, we're just going to do the Schmeeg and they're rushing to the site. They like to take control of the switch site first. They like to push the spawn side to actually cut rotations before focusing to the site. So the game plan is there. but maybe it's missing variations versus different opponents.
Yeah, I think that's really important, being able to show the variations and also like have attacks through mid or through trium and all this stuff too, because a sense of map where it's so easy to get like very congested, you know, B main, A main, tight corridors, not a lot of space to like break onto the sites, like smokes can shut it down, mollies, like anything. It's very easy to like commit with like 3 or 4 players into a main and then sit there for 12 seconds like, wait, what do we do now? We don't have any vision on the rest of the map. We don't have any control. So I think like that is important, and being able to mix that up and find those good attacks through tree or through mid and all this stuff. It's one of those where it's a little bit more of the strategically diverse maps, I think, as well, and how you're actually trying to coordinate an attack onto a site, because like a simple push in is just never going to get the job done.
Absolutely. So much like this baiting utility early in the rounds because it's so choky for attackers to, especially getting on the B side. All right, let's go back upstairs and back in time a little bit, because we want to talk about these round 2 games, because these are qualifying matches here in NA. And you look, Envy have that victory over TSM. Sentinels, I mean, yeah, we were a little bit shaky on the Sentinels Rise game. I mean, Ender, you said you were shocked to even be reporting the sort of the result after 2 maps. So we get Sentinels versus Envy. I think a lot of people are really looking forward to this one. Look, it's a 2-0, but I feel like it really delivers. It gives us some of the best looks of both of these teams here. Feels like it could have gone either way, guys. What's your take here on this potential instant classic?
Well, I think one of my first things for Envy is that I feel like they showed us a lot more depth in terms of their map pool, because like this is a team that like just didn't play, like they played 1 game of I think Breeze before this. They really didn't like playing Iceball. Like there's a lot of these maps they just didn't like playing, and against TSM they put on a really strong performance on Breeze. Here on Icebox, again, they're also starting to show these looks, and I think that a lot of that has to do again with bringing Ye into the roster and his willingness to take a lot more early fights and coming out on top of those early fights too. It lets you control a map like Icebox a whole lot more.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, I'm just chuckling a bit because I'm just catching up the chat, and Mike's HD says and quotes me, they should play Breach and KO Vans, or like then Signs Vans, and I do agree. I think that if Envy actually played Breach or KO, yeah, I'm just joking as well. But honestly, what I did like from Icebox, at least for Sentinels and Envy, is the fact that they didn't bring out a Sage. And Mike's has told me a couple of times to say, look, you don't necessarily need to have a Sage to like go easy mode and win the map of Icebox. There's different ways of playing it, and I think this is why they sacrificed the Sage to bring in Victor on a raise, so they could have a more explosive double duelist comp and work a little bit more on mid controls too. What I think was unfortunate, I went back and forth, was like it was scrappy no matter what. I think it was super close. I mean, it's 13-11. You can't ask for anything closer except for OTs. But Dapper at some point was missing his right clicks against Marv that was diffusing, like literally in front of his face, and couldn't right click him and kill him. And then there was also like Victor trying to like get openers with showstoppers into the A site, where I don't even think he got any kills. So every single time you had -8 that goes into the chat because it was a wasted ult. Yes, it created space, but it wasn't enough to get kills. You need to get these kills on these openings to have better chances here against Sentinels on these post.
You don't sound convinced by either of these teams in that series, fans.
No, it's not that I'm not convinced. I mean, Sentinels is always a team that's super good on this map, right? Like almost unstoppable at this point. So the fact that Envy wants to bring this map against Sentinels, or wants to put this into the map pool, as Ender was saying, to play it against Sentinels and to still make it 13-11, it's still quite impressive that without a Sage, they still made it that close. It's just the reason why I'm like dumbing it down a bit is because it really came down to just their gunfights in the end too, more than like lurked plays, strat plays, and explosions, because the trades were really quick for both teams.
I want to establish this though as well, is that I don't think Envy wanted to play Icebox necessarily against them anyway, but they banned Breeze against Sentinels. They didn't want to play it. And fucking hell, they didn't want to play it against TSM either, I don't think. But they had no choice.
No, they got bodied.
The
first time they ever played Breeze, I think, was Sentinels like a month or so before this, too. And they just got absolutely destroyed. So it's one of those things where it does not feel good at all. And one of the problems I feel like, or I was really concerned about Envy coming in, is like, especially like if you look at Berlin, like potentially playing a best of 5, like, do you have that map depth? And I think it's really important that they were able to take Sentinels all the way to 13-11 to sort of prove that they do have that in the tank now.
It's so crucial. I mean, especially as the map pool is expanding and you sort of you're getting like whatever's left in there at times. You have to be able to be proficient on either Icebox or Breeze because you're not going to beat a team like it's fucking hell, especially in a best of 5. Like, forget about it. You really need to expand that pool. But having a newer player always means that you shuffle stuff around. Now that your fucking operator player isn't playing Astra on fucking Haven, you need to probably change your approach a little bit. You know what I mean? It's a very different. Fundamentally, it's extremely different look, and it's a big adaptation. I think Marved helps a lot with that, but there's a lot of parts that moved, right? For this team. So fair enough. For a team that's had some big changes recently, you get 2 maps, 13-11 against Sentinels. It's a good sign for the future. I don't think anyone is, unless you're really high on what Ye is going to do as an individual. I don't know if you're expecting Envy to win this one. But the next qualifying game is an interesting one because this is I got blindsided by this. I'll be honest with you guys. I thought XSet were going to 2-0 this match. It was close though. Another banger. Was it like 2 13-11s?
2 13-11s. Yeah. No, honestly, all of NA was just like 13-11s. You couldn't ask for much of a better qualifier.
And as a caster, you love this because you don't have to fucking do like a potential never-ending overtime, but you still get a close game. You know what I mean? It's like a good middle ground. You don't get fucking boomed out on casting like a marathon series. But I'm going around the ground, so we'll collect some insights here because this Haven map here is XSet, all XSet on the attacking side. 100 Thieves don't seem to know how to match up timings, but then fucking see XSet just go dead on defense. What is going on here? Is it the compositions? How does KO factor into this discussion at all?
I definitely think it's the compositions too, because I mean, when you're talking about boom, I mean, XSet definitely boomed that map. When you look at how they won 9-3 on the half, I think when they were playing on attack.
9-3.
Yeah. So like having KO in the composition for 100 Thieves, like you look at that mini map, everybody's always moving around, right? You're playing off information from guided light jet dashes down towards long C, the KO 0 point coming out towards garage side. When you get that information, you don't see any pushes towards C. Okay, let's fully rotate now towards the A side because the hit should happen that way. But meanwhile, while you're kind of doing this as 100 Thieves, the only thing XSet could do is still hold a slow default, and then suddenly they could walk into an open site. And I think that's how 100 Thieves kind of like got outplayed into that portion too.
Are they 100 Thieves over rotating? Like how XSet is really good at collecting this info and knowing which site to walk into. Which is it?
I think it's more like 100 Thieves are like guessing on non-information that they were getting, right? Because if you're throwing a 0 point and you're throwing a guide light down and you don't get information, then you're assuming that the default is happening towards this B side, A side. And then once you're going to rotate players on that side, and then you have Death trying to peek in, or you have like even they have the Sky going in for information as well, and you're starting to see that, okay, there's more stacks, rotate back, and then you have nothing left really to hold because you don't have a Sendel, you don't have an Astra, you don't have anything that's suppressing any type of explosive pushes across the map. So you're just trying to play catch-up, trying to play the retake, and it wasn't working out.
And it's something that I think as we watch 100 Thieves play a few more series later on, like, because they seem to really like this triple initiator setup. I feel like they got better at playing triple initiators, especially like on attack. Because like the whole idea with running so many of these tools is about trying to gain space on the map, gain space and gain information. So like on Ascent in particular, what they would do a lot was have like Hiko pair up with Nitro. Hiko drones at the start of the round, up mid or something, allows Nitro to like walk up, take a little bit more forward of position.
Up under his smoke.
Exactly. So what they'd have is they'd have one initiator on each site. So they'd have a B initiator, an A initiator, and a mid. And you try to like take space on one of those. And more often than not, they're saving the KO dart for the actual site take. So using the dog from Ethan, they're using the drone from Hiko to gain space. And then once they get in position and decide where to hit, that's when what's it called? Null something?
Null command, yeah.
Null command. That's the one. Yeah. They pop that down and they're able to take sites pretty effectively. And I think they even got better at this, playing this similar style of composition later on in the tournament.
Yeah.
It feels like they really value using the knife to just shut down any sort of like Sentinel-esque utility, right? Like especially they're going up against KJ here. They're dealing with Astra, so get as deep as you can. You don't want to use a knife earlier on. Like it's less for information. In fairness, it's less for information. They kind of gain a lot of information passively early in the round by taking that space and being deductive, right? Using Nitro through mid, he can catch rotates. He can also listen out for anything happening there. So I kind of like it when you actually want to, bring the hammer and anvil down. You can KO knife. You know that there are going to be people on the site. You know you're going to just have to face duels. You just trade in there, but knowing that the defenders can't get the advantage on you with with Astra suck and fucking killjoy nonsense. So you have an edge there. I found that was really quite a fascinating series to see. You know, if you guys like 13-11s, you should check out the other fucking qualification game in the lower bracket, because that was XSet versus Envy, right? They both advanced through this lower bracket. Both teams have a history of just being very good at running through lowers.
Yeah.
And Acend, man, it's another one of the same. No KO here, to be fair. But we get a really competitive first half. It's a 6-6 first half here. Envy win the pistol in the second half. They get off to a run, and they squeak over the line.
Yeah. This is where Crashy, sorry, my apologies before. This is where he popped off on these clutches, and like he tweeted out to you, like, you better give this to me, like, ha 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 ha. Like, there's no way I'm losing this one. Like, our team has to move forward. And the fights that he had on this B side and when he was clutching on that defender side to make it 6-6 overall was actually quite good to see out of him. But you have this other storyline of, once again, Def, he doesn't want to go home. He doesn't want this to be done for XSet. He starts popping off as well, once again, as an Astra. BCJ, I think that there was, like, some glimpse of hope of how he was playing on other maps, too, of, like, we have these moments where BCJ could just pop the fuck off with the Vandal. But he was like doing okay. I mean, he was steady, but he wasn't like popping off to a point where you need those players sometimes to just carry you over that finish line where others can't at times, right? Because you look at this series, Ye was 15 and 20, but who was the one that carried them all? It was fucking Crashy. He's at 26 and 17 in the end with the clutches that he's gotten. So even if Ye was good in like the first blood department, the clutching department definitely went into Crashies.
Yeah, I think that's the important context. There's the first kill, 6 for EA. First death's also 6 for EA. So regardless, all he's doing is just going in, taking those initial duels. Again, very different style than what Envy have been used to running in the past. And also buying space. It's so important. Like, even if your jet dies, as long as you can get into the backside, get some information, pinpoint where the other players are, well, now the rest of your team is flooding in behind you, and you can set up, you know, your Crashies to have a bit of a day for himself and find those kills. And it is that sort of look from Envy and a lot of their aggressive attacks onto site that I think worked so well for them.
Mm-hmm.
I really do feel like, though, in this game in particular, when it came to Ascent, there was a lot going for XSet. I thought they had that map under their belt, because I'm a big fan of this XSet team, same as the other Mitch. I guess we're similar in more than one way. BCJ and Pure, I'll talk about them every time. I love these guys. I know BCJ from Battalion, Pure from going back to MDL and all those kind of things, rank S, rank G. And I think so in this series, you had second half, Envy end up picking up the pistol. Things look pretty good. Like they go up 9-6, I think, when XSet have like a really good opportunity to get back into the game. And Victor shut them down. I remember they're like rushing into the B site. They go down the alleyway, and Victor had like a sick position, nasty one behind a smoke. Like, as you come out of main on the right, that right little corner, we saw it in EU as well. I don't know what it is this week, but people aren't checking it. Whenever they put a smoke down, they're coming out and just looking towards spawn, looking towards market. No one casts an eye in that corner. Victor, I think he took 3, maybe 4 kills with his ultimate as well. Like, he just ran all over them. But from that point, like, XSet still managed to recover it. They managed to bring it up to 11-11, and they faced off against an eco. It looked like it was set. It looked like it was going to be theirs. And Envy win with just fucking pistols to put it 12-11, win that map. And I cannot tell you how, having played BDS when we were on Alliance multiple times, I can tell you how fucking demotivating it is to lose because of a couple of those plays, because of a couple of pistols. You lose that first map, it just wrecks your series for you. And I really felt for them after that Ascent game. I feel like the win was just taken clean out of their sails. They still put up a decent fight, but nowhere near the kind of fire we saw from them on map 1. And I think that the manner that they lost some of these rounds definitely hit them in the delicates.
I mean, we can talk about that briefly. Haven was a very, I think Ye's defensive operator play was really good. Guy picks up a couple 4Ks across this map. Again, you know, he can maybe be a less aggressive individual at times, maybe in the same way that Mummy was, but really strong output over that first half. And XSet only get 3 rounds. It's like a 9-3 half time. And, you know, I think even though they lose the pistol, Envy are able to bounce back and look pretty good. I think we got the better team out of this one. I think we really got the 3 best possible teams. I don't know I don't know what you guys think, if there's a way the bracket
Agreed.
could be drawn differently, but like I can't see FaZe being that team. Definitely not LG. Rise just, I don't know if they're solid or consistent enough yet. And TSM fucking missed me with that shit. I'm off. I'm off the fucking TSM hype train. Definitely feels like the NA's best representatives are going.
Yeah.
We could talk about these lower. I mean, the lower finals between 100 Thieves and Envy was pretty bonkers. But again, there's nothing on that game except for the seeding. So Envy did get third seed.
Yeah.
And the grand final, well, I mean, they're taking the piss. I still played fucking Jet, mate. I mean.
Well, so I don't want to knock it, actually, and I was just saying that when we were live on air too. It's like 100 Thieves playing this comp is not that bad. Like, yes, Steel was playing a Jet, and he could be trolly, but overall, it's still composition that's used by Vision Strikers, and they still played it very similarly to how Vision Strikers play, right? It's not like
Do Vision Strikers put their Sentinel player on Jet?
I mean,
honestly, I thought Steel's Jet was sick.
Kills though, yeah.
Dude, six first bloods, like he was playing so, like he was like, honestly, watching that game was hilarious because like you expect Steel to like, hold the tight angles, whatever, no, on defense he's literally cycling. He goes B long, takes the peak. The next round he goes showers. The next round he pushes up A short aggressively. Then he's peeking out of hookah. Like the man was playing Jet just how like any other aggressive Jet would do it, and he was putting on a really solid performance. Like I really don't want to knock him at all. That was sick.
Yeah, it was still 13-11, man, on that first map.
Yeah,
so.
that bind map was actually one of the closer ones here.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm maybe more concerned about like the Haven and Split showing from.
Yeah.
I mean, well, it's 100 Thieves on Split, so that's okay. But I mean, Hiko actually looked pretty good on the Viper in general here. But 100 Thieves, what they get bowled over on defense. I don't know what to say about it. Really. It looks like
Breeze was good for 100 Thieves, right? Like I think where I did commend 100 Thieves is their defense on Breeze, where Acend was able to get a couple more kills. But you look at the last two maps, I mean, you're playing against Sentinel on Haven, you're playing against Sentinel on Split. You're playing with your KO right now as the initiator, trying to open things up, but the KO doesn't really work well for Steel against 100 Thieves because you could actually suppress people with the 0 point, but Dapper still stays at the bottom of the site and still headshots people and then run out balcony. Yeah. So there's a little bit more tweaking that they need to do if they want to continue integrate KO in their roster for 100 Thieves. And I believe in it. And I'll say it again. I feel that it's going to help a little bit more if they integrate Nitro on Astra on the other maps, like for example on Haven.
What are the takeaways from this series as a whole then? If we're gonna take it a bit more seriously, as you're sort of appealing to us to, what are the insights we should be walking away from Sentinels and from 100 Thieves, either one or both? It doesn't matter.
Yeah. I mean, I think for 100 Thieves, like this entire tournament long, I think there's a ton to be learned about like them challenging the meta, as well as just like what agents are actually good right now. Because like, for example, like, the KO works sometimes, sometimes it doesn't, but like there's a lot of things. Like they had this lineup on Split on attack where they can hit B Heaven and it's just not a shootable dart. And I think that learning a lot of those things is actually really important. And when you time executes really nicely with a great, dart from the KO, it can be really difficult to play against. And I personally think that 100 Thieves are really onto something by running compositions without Sentinels, like going heavy on initiators, because to me, I feel like initiators are so good. I mean, you get information out of them. Like all the initiators have information. They have flashes. They have, everything, like a drone scout. Like it can be really insane to gain early info in rounds. And even more than that, you think like later into rounds, your retakes onto sites are so deadly. Because like in the past, if you would run like, let's say one Sky or something like this, if they find the site that Sky is playing on, they kill the Sky early, getting back onto the site is a really, really difficult thing to do. But when you have a Breach in a Sky, or you have a Sova in a Sky, you have a KO in a Sky, you have these extra tools that once they take one site, you still have one more player with those re-entry utility tools to come back onto a site and help out the rest of your duelists or whatever to actually get back onto the site and retake some ground against your opponent. So to me, I feel like there's a lot to be learned from 100 Thieves, and I think there's still more to be done. Like you go back and study VODs, you bet a lot of the teams, the IGLs that are going to Berlin are going to be studying 100 Thieves, because I think they have hit something here, and I feel like there are going to be more teams willing to try it out in the future.
I feel it's the world still going to try to read and anti-strat Sentinels. They're like the team to beat still, right? After winning Masters 1, Masters 2, quite convincingly, quite easily against Fnatic. Now that you're starting to see EU, everybody's on the hopium because Fnatic's out. So like, that means everybody got so much better in Europe. But then no, you're still gonna get fucked by Sentinels, no matter who you are. So then, unfortunately, you definitely do have to try to study NA and Sentinels and try to see what you could do. Try.
He's not having it. He ain't looking at it.
You could
He's
try.
like, he's a VOD watcher, but not that kind of VOD watcher. You know what I mean?
I watch VODs I can learn from, so I stick to EU and Korea.
Okay.
Oh.
Let's one more time. Let's bring out the bracket here and remind everybody who NA is sending here. Obviously, Envy lose to 100 Thieves there in that 5-map affair, so they would be the 3rd seed. 100 Thieves 2nd seed. Sentinels 1st seed. Like we kind of said, feel like out of NA we definitely got the best 3 choices. I think in EMEA it's a little more muddled right now. Right, there's so many. There's teams that really just showed up for this event, or there's teams that maybe flew under the radar, like Supermassive Blaze that are now going. And a lot of people are like, actually, these guys are going to fuck people up over there. And there's still some of Europe's best to go through that lower bracket. So while NA is done, Europe still has the tail end of their playoffs to go. So definitely recommend everybody keep their eyes over on that scene and see who's going to break through. I mean, like there's G2 guilds in the mix there. Giants are still up for a lot of really exciting games to come. And thanks so much for coming on the show for the first time, man. Great to pick your brain a little bit about how things in NA went down.
Yeah, it was a pleasure, and I'll be watching some EU. I think there's so many interesting teams around the world, that you have to study going to Berlin. I just can't wait to see who wins the finals between Envy and Sentinels.
I mean, if any of you out there...
this guy fucking
saying,
out of here. Come on.
If any of you out there doubted that Ender watched VODs, now you fucking know.
Yep.
He is one of us, a VOD watcher.
One of us.
And again, like, the NA hype's pretty high here. So, Mitch, I mean, he was outnumbering Vans earlier on here. I'm an impartial party because y'all both can get fucked. I'm from the great land down under. Sonics, baby, all the way. But...
How many slots do you have in Champions?
Oh, we have so many spots. We have so many spots. Do you know how a disproportionate number of Australian casters there are based per capita? We're just better than you guys.
Yeah,
I don't know what.
It's
how
actually
else to put
not
it.
as many
It's
fucking
so
players,
unfair.
but all right.
I don't know. I don't even know what to say. Is like Atlas is Pastry Time. Papa Smithy was one of the best. Rusty.
I gotta bring out an Acend, man.
A lot of tier 1 casters, not a lot of tier 1 players. That's all I'm hearing.
That's it.
No,
That's it.
That's it. That's it. I mean, here's the brilliant part about that is I get paid the same no matter what the fucking scoreboard's saying. I like it that way. I'm never going back to fucking try to compete. That shit is whack. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us on the show here again. Thanks to Ender. Thanks for Vance for getting off a fucking plane and jumping straight on the show. And of course, Mitch for
jumping straight to bed now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you for coming on the show, and of course, Mitch as well. We got a lot of really interesting insights out of Europe as well. For those NA fans that maybe don't get to see much of it now, you know exactly what you're coming up against when we get to Berlin, and it's going to be pretty serious. We'll be back next week. We need to break down what happened at the tail end of the EMEA playoffs and start to build towards Berlin. It's going to be exciting times, but until then, folks, we'll see you next week, Tuesday, 11 a.m. PT. Don't miss it. More Valoranting coming your way, but for now, enjoy your week. See you then.
Oh, yeah.